We are live. Here we go. We're talking encyclopedias.
Bet you didn't see that coming, did you, boys and girls?
Our road conditions are okay here. It's 32 degrees out, but it's dry. We had a wind warnings last night and today. I was not able to get out of my bike ride.
It's you've got me beat by 1 degree. It's 31 here right now. So.
Yeah, really. This winter we've had a lot because I bike ride all winter. I've been doing that since for like 10, 12 years now. Bike ride right through the winter. But if it's snowing or icy out, of course I won't go out. And also, if it's below 20 degrees Fahrenheit, I'll stay inside and cycle. So, that's a pretty good. I would miss maybe during the winter, I would miss maybe 5, 6, 7 bike rides all winter.
Right.
I think I've missed 2 or 3 times that in January and February.
Right.
It has been so cold. It's been below 20 degrees, at least, and now I usually go at 9 a.m. It's been below 20 degrees at least 5 times. It's been icy out another 5 times. This morning I couldn't go because of winds. Once.
You can't even take out your spandex bike shorts, can you?
No, I've got the special insulated bike pants. But there was one time I went out it was during the summertime, and it was high winds. I'm like, I just feel like going out. And it was one of those gusts of 40 to 50 mile an hour days. I should not have gone out.
Did you go sideways?
I'd be going down the road, and all of a sudden I'd be a foot this way. Right. I'd be like, whoa, what just, you wouldn't even know how you move. It was like, whoa, what happened? I mean, it's one thing when the wind's in your face or when the wind's in your face, it's tough to cycle. You're against the wind.
No doubt, no.
But, you can do it. But when that wind moves you 6 inches to the left or to the right, it's just like, I shouldn't be out here.
Time to get a method of transportation that's a little more stable in the wind.
Breaking news, it's cold here. So I stay on the stationary bike in the super cold mornings, the super windy mornings, or the icy mornings.
Since Terrence brought it up, I have to ask, how cold is it?
It's so cold.
And then we'll have to convert it from Celsius to Fahrenheit to figure out what it actually is.
It's cold here, too. That's my sister telling you. It's 32 here, so it's probably colder up here in Canada.
I don't even think about 32 being cold anymore, to be honest. As long as the wind's not blowing, it's not that bad.
Yeah. It's cold, but it's still warm enough to cycle. That's okay.
It's not like, 5.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll take that. This winter, I'll take 32. I'll take 32.
I just hope it's not going to be hotter than bloody blazes this summer.
It always is.
I hate it. I really do. I like spring, I like fall, but summer, not as much.
I've got 3 comic shop newses this week. Because I think sometimes they don't come in at the right time. Because last week, matter of fact, I had I got $17.99 last week. Actually, I didn't show it up. There's a nice JR Jr. Spider-Man drawing on the front of that one. And this week came in the one before it, $17.98, which has got a nice "The Ocean Will Take Us," and $1,800. So it's like this one came out last week, and then this week came out the one before it and the one after it. It's just, I don't know what their distribution is like.
That's what I was going to ask. I wonder if they're still with Diamond exclusively, or they've gone with somebody else as well.
Yeah, I don't know how this gets. I think Diamond distributes it because the comic shop pay for this. What was that?
They do distribute. I just wonder if they're exclusive.
Minus 16 degrees Celsius. Yeah, I don't even know what that was. They put their minuses right below freezing. That's not that scary at all.
What gets me about Celsius is, we're always, as Americans, we're always getting picked on by the rest of the world for not using the metric system, which I understand.
Yeah.
But the metric system, has smaller gradients, so you can more accurately measure something.
Unless it's temperature.
Yeah, Celsius is different. Fahrenheit
Right.
is much smaller gradients on it, so you can get a more accurate reading that way.
That's strange.
It is. It's kind of ironic, I guess.
They just wanted to use that base 10 to go
Try
from
something. Alexa,
0 freezing to 100 boiling.
Alexa, convert negative 16
I
Celsius.
don't know that one.
Yeah, you don't. Alexa, convert negative 16 Celsius to Fahrenheit.
Minus 16 degrees Celsius is 3.2 degrees Fahrenheit.
That's cold.
That's cold.
Oh,
3.3 degrees.
ain't lying. That is cold.
That's cold.
I've been in colder, but cold.
Have you ever read any of the? Here's a new Project Superpowers thing. Have you ever read any Project Superpowers? That's who is it? Well, don't have my glasses on me. Can't see.
No.
Can't read without my reading glasses. Who is this? It's Dynamite. It's Dynamite. They use a bunch of the public domain comics, I think, because the Black Terror is in here. Oh, I guess there's a Lady Black Terror too.
Are they mostly pulp characters?
Yeah, they're pulp heroes, and I think they're some of the Golden Age heroes.
Okay.
And that's what Project Superpowers is. Like, I think the Green Hornet may be in there. He may be a licensed one.
Which is funny because the Green Hornet doesn't actually have any superpowers.
Yeah, I've never actually read it, and I just realized it must be. It's been around for at least a decade, if not more than that.
Oh, the Superpowers project.
The Project Superpowers and various minis and stuff. And I've never read one of them. It's just weird to sometimes realize that they're, especially for me who goes to the comic shop every week and picks up. I'm always looking for new series and things.
Right.
And that's just something I've never, ever been interested enough to pick up an issue of. It's just kind of weird.
Fair.
But I think it was this one. What annoyed me about this, Duex making waves again with The Ocean Will Take Us. It got to like the last paragraph till they mentioned who the artist on it was. And it's just like, artists are so.
Oh, by the way, here's who actually drew it.
Artists are so devalued in concept. They don't even mention them to the last paragraph. Just like, I think nowadays too. I was just watching Sleepy Reader's video just before coming on here, where he was going over. He has his comics countdown,
right?
Where he just puts them in order and how he liked them best. And he had one book on there that I can't even remember what it was. But it's what happens sometimes is nowadays for a creator-owned project, the writer actually owns the copyright and then hires an artist to do the project. The wind chill will kill you. It sure will. So it's like whatever book he had, and sometimes I think that makes for. He was complaining. He thought it made for sort of an uninvolved artist. Yeah, I was a Sleepy Reader. I was just watching your video.
It really depends on the. I don't know if relationship is the right word, but the dynamic between the communication dynamics between the.
But I think a lot of times they, like Marvel and DC, find artists who are foreign and are therefore cheaper than American.
So they can afford them, right?
So not only is the copyright held by the writer, he's the one with a real stake in it, and he hires an artist himself.
Mm-hmm.
But the artists are also often, I guess, not even in the country, and I don't know how they meet them, what sort of deals they have in place.
Zoom.
Zoom, yeah. But, I just wonder how involved the artists actually are.
I'm sure it probably varies from project to project.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it shows in some projects.
I mean, in a perfect world, it'd be nice if you're like a artist and if you didn't have to worry about money. But I understand that's not the way the real world works. But if an artist and a writer would just get together and collaborate on something that they both liked.
Yeah, I think that does happen a lot. That happens in a lot of the books I buy. But as he says, I imagine there's a writer and editor who work together in the U.S. and the artist is just a distant contractor. I think that pretty much nails it. It really does. Sometimes.
It seems to be more the case these days than it was.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think because the world's gotten smaller and you can hire artists from all around the world and the American dollar can go pretty far in other countries.
But Neil Adams tells us the world is getting bigger.
There is that. We can never discount what Neil Adams thinks about the size of the world.
Oh gosh. That's going to be a running joke from now on.
Well, it is kind of funny.
Yes,
Let's see. Anything interesting in these? What?
I saw where they're going to reprint George Perez's JLA Avengers book, but there's only 7,000 copies.
I'm just going to bring that up too. That's kind of amazing that they're. I mean, that causes more problems than it solves.
Yeah, because there's going to be a lot of demand for it.
I saw a few people tweeting about it today.
Mm-hmm.
And people are, of course, complaining. And I don't blame people for complaining. Because 7,000 copies means that you or I will never see a copy. We just won't.
I wonder if they can go back later. I don't know. It's
no, you know what it is? Here, what is it? When I feel like art in an indie comic doesn't seem up to snuff, then I look at the copyright in Indonesia. Invariably, only the writer will have skin in the game. Yeah, I've done that myself and seen that, and then I go, oh, okay. He's just cranking out a job to pay the rent, and I can, you can certainly understand that, but
right.
You can certainly also tell when a artist is passionately involved, and they tell you like right in the written material too. Mm-hmm. It's right. Like, it's nothing they want to hide when the artist is passionately involved. Right. But yeah, I saw this one. He was getting Twitter's weird.
Yeah, I agree.
This one guy, I don't even remember who it was chastising people for getting mad at there only being 7,000 copies. He's like, oh, that's the best they could get. Don't be mad. And he stop being so entitled and this and that. And I'm like, why are you mad that people want to buy something that they clearly won't be able to buy?
I didn't read any further. What was the reason that they only could print 7,000?
They never gave a reason. Right, if they're a team, they talk about it exactly. That's the writer and artist. They never gave a specific reason besides everybody seems to say the paper shortage. Marie Javins actually tweeted about it, and she said it was only because she and Sven Larsson, who I think is working in Sven, I know from my Marvel days. And he left in the 90s. I think he's back at Marvel now. I'm not 100% sure, but I think that's where he is now. And Dan Buckley, who I also know from my Marvel days, who came back to Marvel. And Dan Buckley is like a vice president or something in Marvel. He's another bigwig. So Sven, and of course Marie is editor-in-chief. Will the price be jacked up? No, the price is going to be $30. Well, the problem with the price being $30, if you look on eBay right now, and if you can find one, the price for the trade paperback of the JLA Avengers is $80 to $120.
The original version, right?
The original version. So if you can find one, a complete set of the first run goes from anywhere from $50 to $100, depending on condition.
And 3 months ago, you could probably get one for like $12.
No, they've never been cheap. They haven't been cheap in a long time.
Okay.
No. Because But anyway, what Marie said on Twitter was that it was only because of her, Dan Buckley, and Sven Larsson knowing each other for 30 years that this got done. And I think she said it was Sven who came. And this is being done for Heroes Initiative.
Right.
So their Heroes Initiative is getting the money from it. And if you ask me, and people are saying, oh, they're only getting 7,000 because of the paper shortage or whatever. I'm saying they're only getting 7,000 because that's all those three people could get from their bosses.
It's certainly possible.
Good. That's what I think. Because if you're going to tell me that Disney and AT&T, two of the largest corporations in the world, couldn't use their leverage to get a little extra paper, I'm going to tell you you're crazy.
Yeah, they don't care.
They don't care. They don't want their. The reason this has never been reprinted. 7,000 be a pretty average print run these days? I don't think so. They know exactly how much demand. They're not stupid. I know Dan Buckley, Sven Larson, and Marie Javins aren't stupid. I know that personally. They know that
if they didn't realize there was demand, this wouldn't be happening anyways.
Right. That's just all they could get out of that. I'm assuming they have to do this. Yeah, the bosses. I'm assuming they have to do this without disrupting any of their current books. In order to get a bigger print run, they'd have to, without
printer schedule.
They'd have to bump some of their other trades from the printer schedule, and they're not getting any money from this. The reason it's never been reprinted is because why would Marvel or DC reprint a book that they only get half the profits on?
Right.
And
I get a weekly email from Shelton Drum, who runs Heroes Aren't Hard to Find.
Yeah.
And he was talking about the, he understood people would be upset because they're going to be allocated. Nobody's going to get enough copies. So they decided they were going to put theirs up for auction, but every single penny of the auction was going to go back to the Heroes Initiative.
That just means the people who pay the most for it are going to get it.
Right.
You're still not going to get a copy. What do I care if the auction is on eBay or at the local comic shop? I'm still not going to be able to get it. Sure, it's nice that it's going to charity, they say, but it doesn't help me. I have a copy of the original one, so I'm not too worried about it. But
why couldn't they make it available digitally?
Because why would they do something where they only get half the money from it? They could have kept this in print for the last 20 years. This could have been an evergreen.
Yeah, you're right. I agree. It's like, wait a minute.
What it is, it's because
it begins with a G and it ends with a D.
Exactly. There are, not the people who make the comics. They're all for making the comics. Sure. But once you get to corporations this big, there's not just one guy. There's a team of people who it's their entire job is to make sure that the company makes the maximum amount of money in the shortest time. That's why they're employed there. And they get paid a lot of money and they have a lot of power. And it's them who makes the decisions. And they're not just interested in making profit. They're interested in growing, and they're interested in making the most profit right now. So something like, JLA Avengers, like I said, they could have kept it in. They keep Watchmen in print for 40 years. They could have kept JLA Avengers in print for the last 20 easily. It wouldn't have cost them anything. But only each company would only be making half the profits. So there's no reason to do it. Not when you can put a book in that place where you can make all the profits. And it doesn't even matter if the book you put in place that you make all the profits on isn't going to make as much profit as the JLA Avengers. That's not even a thought. It's kind of like
it's just, well, I mean, the whole situation is just sad.
Yeah. And I don't blame people for being upset because no one is going to be, very few people are going to be able to walk into their comic shop and pay $30 and get this book. Out of the 7,000 copies, I would say 1,000 of them, people are going to be go into their comic shop and get a copy. It's just not going to happen. Well, I mean, if you ran a comic shop, and once again, the comic shop owners are looking to make money. They can be greedy too. I know there is probably some comic shop owners who will sell them to their best customers, sort of as a reward. For 30, they're like, "Oh, you want this? You spent thousands of dollars with me over the years."
Right.
I actually want the book. I would rather, but I already have. I kind of want it because I want to see the new material. If it was easy, if I could order it, if it was easy to get, I would get a copy. But I already have a copy of the original one, so I really don't need it that badly. I would love the oversized hardcover of this, but it goes for $700-800.
Yeah.
And I had my copy of the JLA Avengers for, I don't know how long. When did that come out? 2004?
I'm not sure. I don't really know.
I probably had it from somewhere between 12 and 14 years sitting on my shelf unread. I didn't read it till just a couple of years ago, and I really liked it. And I was like, wow. And one of the reasons I would like the oversized hardcover is probably the only version that opens up flat, because the trade paperback doesn't. And it was originally square bound, so we know those don't open up flat.
Yeah.
So it was like, that's why, but you can't, that's been out of print for
a long time,
15 years, and goes for a lot of print. But yeah, I actually would buy a copy of it if I could. But you know what's going to happen? I mean, if I was a comic shop owner and I could, why would you not order a copy of something? I would order 1,000 copies of it. If I could, and if there was only 7,000 of them,
sure, they probably won't let you. But yeah.
They won't let you. I would order 1,000 because you can sell it for $50 to $100. Why would you not buy something? Even if I could get them at retail price of $30,
right?
I'd buy a lot. That's what everybody's going to.
Yeah, you just make money in bulk.
Right. For every scrupulous comic shop that's going to sell them to their best customers at cover price, there's going to be 2 comic shops that immediately put them on eBay.
Right. And it would kind of suck, if you're a comics owner too, and say like you're allocated, I'm going to be generous and say 10 copies.
Right.
How do you determine who gets which? I mean, you just do it random lottery? Because it seems like the only fair way to do it.
Yeah. Like I said, my comic shop owner would give them to his best customers, the one who come in every week. I could actually order one from my comic shop and have a chance of getting it at least.
Right. I mean,
because
can you
I'm
imagine,
in there every week?
And this is an extreme example, but I'm using it on purpose. Being, a customer to comic shop, or being an owner of a comic shop, and a guy comes in with his like 8-year-old kid, really wanting this book, and you have to tell him like, I can't get a copy of it.
Yeah,
that would suck.
I know. Comic shops hate stuff like that. They hate stuff that is in demand that they can't get. It just drives them nuts. I know that, because why wouldn't it? People are finally coming into your store, and you have to tell them, no, I can't. I don't have it and can't get it.
But if you have $6, we'll send you over to Jared and he'll sell you 2 copies of Spawn.
Right. Ironic that this is a charity book. Yeah. I would see they could easily print 30,000 copies and it'd sell out really quickly. But like I said, I don't blame anyone for being mad at this, because the FOMO is going to be big too. Because you just know you gotta, if you wanted to pay $100 for this book, you'd have it already. You don't want to pay $100 for it.
That's true.
That's just it. So the idea that they're coming out with a new printing and they're gonna cost $100 on the secondary market, we all know that, because they already do, and 7,000 isn't going to really drop the price on it.
I saw where I think George is finally going to have to enter hospice care too.
Yeah, but he's not near death, they said.
Right. Yeah.
It's just
the whole idea.
Yeah, I know it's rough. He had an infection, I think they said, that really knocked him down. The last picture I saw of him, they posted a picture on Facebook just this week, and he looked a lot worse than he did just last month. It was like, whoa, this is real.
It also brings up the topic of, like, if you appreciate an artist or any artist, visual, music, literary, whatever it may be, let them know that you like them while they're still alive.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Definitely.
Let other people know that, hey, this is worth checking out.
I learned in the 90s, because what happens is you might see somebody whose art you really like in person, but you really have nothing you don't know what to say to them. I just say, hey, oh wow, nice to meet you. I really like your art. I like your work a lot. That's what I always,
you know, yeah.
But that to me, that I found that always kind of is better than hemming, going like
Right.
people really have nothing to say,
Right.
and that's the way life is. But that's what I. Oh wow, I really like you, and I'll name something if
Right.
I can. Oh yeah, really. One of my favorites is such and such.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just that whole situation is just not.
Yeah, this 7,000 copies of JLA Avengers might get them into might create more ill will than the goodwill it's supposed to create. That's what's amazing too.
Things have a weird way of working out like that sometimes.
Yeah.
No good deed goes unpunished, you know.
But the problem is, it's not a good deed. I mean, with the 7,000 print run, that's a problematic deed.
Right.
And anybody with any knowledge of, the three who got it done, Marie, Sven, and Dan Buckley, they have very deep knowledge of making comics, of course, because they've been doing it. But sure. I don't know how much knowledge they have of buying comics. I don't know that you and I both know almost all of those 7,000 copies. It's going to be we know it's going to be impossible to get. We know at least half of them are going to the secondary market. We know it's just going to make people who want to buy it really annoyed that they can't buy, because they just announced something that they can't possibly buy.
Sure.
We know. I don't know if they knew that going in with that. Maybe I don't know if they thought that.
I don't see how they wouldn't have known, or at least, granted, you're kind of in a situation where, like, here's what we could do, and we did it.
Oh, I'm sure they got done what they could get done.
Yeah, but
I'm just not 100% sure they thought it all the way through to, wow, this could create more animosity.
Oh no,
Tom passed away.
Rick's brother.
Yeah,
that sucks.
I recognize that name.
Man.
That's sad.
Well, let me bring up some good news, since we're just talking about bad news here. Gus got married.
So, who got married?
Gus.
Gus got married? Oh, that's what this is about.
So congratulations to that. And the photos he took around the wedding, I think it was in a cathedral. Man, you got one great photographer working there. You did some really nice photographs.
Okay. That's cool.
So at least we got a little something to celebrate amongst all this other junk.
Mind the married. Fantastic photo.
Yeah, it looked like a really nice. I'm assuming that's where they had the wedding. I'm not sure, but it is. That was a nice venue there.
Wow. Gus and his new bride are beautiful people. The glitterazzi.
Glitterazzi.
I got 11 comics this week. Holy cow.
To 11.
I've went to 11. 10 off my pull list, and one that tricked me off the shelf. I'll show you the one that tricked me.
Okay.
Since I've intrigued you now. And that would be another of these Aftershock not one-shots. And this is a Tim Bradstreet cover. I haven't seen Tim Bradstreet in a while.
Now that you bring it up, I have not seen his. I haven't seen him
I
in a
think
while.
we even mentioned we hadn't seen him on one show. But this is, instead of being one shot, this is actually a mini series. I didn't know it was a mini, because I've been picking up these one shot. One of the things I like about them is that they're one shots. I don't have to decide if I want to pick up any more.
Right.
And this one also, instead of being $6.99, was $7.99. I'm like, they got me for an extra $1, and I have to decide if I want.
What's
I actually decided it's by
the subject matter of the book?
Garth Ennis and P.J. Holden, and it's about it's in Burma, 1944. Imperial Japan will command most of Asia. So it's about the British fighting the Japanese in Burma in 1944, and it's real tough in that there's no sugarcoating in this. I mean, that was a rough part of the war.
Yeah, fighting in the Pacific Theater on land.
Yeah,
was really rough.
And the Japanese, didn't believe in surrender.
Right.
So there was a matter of fact in the very beginning they have a little John Masters, The Road Past Mandalay quote, who I assume is a real author. Right. And that right there is talking about how brave the Japanese were and how they didn't believe in surrender. They would just fight till the very last.
Yeah.
And that, was, and this story is rough. I mean, the things that happen in here are like, woo, as the British are trying to, but it's very real. It's a war story you don't really see anymore in that it's so
in terms of it's not sugar-coated or.
It's not sugar-coated.
Okay.
I think most of the people that bought Lion and the Eagle thought they were getting a one-shot. Yeah, because all the other ones have been one-shots. So. But I put it on my pull list just because the first issue was so good. 40 pages, $8.
I would read that.
Yeah. Oh, it's good stuff. I mean, just the
because like we talked about a few weeks ago, once you turn 50 in the U.S., you become a World War II expert. So.
Yeah. But really enjoyed it.
It just kicks in. Yeah. Yeah.
The main character is a soldier, and the second main character is a doctor in the army too. So that was interesting. But really, there's some like they were. It started out with the main character who is a British soldier talking to a Chinese soldier who was there. I think the Chinese soldier was there with the Americans, observing how the British fought, is how it was going, and they were discussing the war, and they were discussing the Americans too, and how they fought as compared to the British, how the Americans and British didn't get along, and how Roosevelt made it very clear to Churchill that they were not fighting to preserve the British Empire. So that there's politics going on under the undercurrent too. So it was I really enjoyed this issue.
Terrence wants to see the interior.
Let me show you the interiors. Hold on. Oh, not him. Solo layout. Let's go over there. Solo layout. There we go. I'll show you a little interiors. See if we can get you a good page. Oh, there we go. Nice.
Now,
here we are going over Japanese, because the Japanese tested bombs on the Chinese civilians, including this guy's mother. They'd stake people out to different lengths, and then there's a night shot. Different lengths from the center of the bomb blast to see what it would do to them. There's some more night shots.
Who did the interior
artwork? P.J. Holden.
Okay.
There's a little more comics with Scott as the interior, please. P.J. Holden is a Northern Irish comic artist, best known for his work on Judge Dredd. PJ is also known for Marvel, everybody else. He illustrated everything from sci-fi to superheroes to World War One.
Hmm.
With Garth Ennis, he's created hundreds of pages of war comics, from bombing raids in the Ruhr Valley to tank battles in Kursk. So I guess he's Garth Ennis's go-to war comic guy.
I wonder if he did the Battler Britain series that came out a while back.
Oh, that's right. That was a good one. I enjoyed that one. I don't remember who drew it.
I'll have to go back and dig them out of a box somewhere and find out.
Yeah. I could walk over to my shelf, but it's all the way over there. I like the serious Garth Ennis. Matter of fact, I'm just about to reread since I got a hard copy of this for Christmas. This was my favorite Garth Ennis, I think. This one from TKO Comics. And it was funny because Earl Grey was just showing this off, and he was saying it was his least favorite Garth Ennis comic. And I was like, no, that's my favorite one.
I haven't read a lot of Garth Ennis. I've read some. I really like the Starlight series that he did with Gorlin Parlow.
I tell you, sometimes when I go over to the comments, that's when it kicks me out.
Okay.
I don't know why. Yo, D. But like I said, this was who was it? Earl Grey's. Yeah, he was surprised Earl didn't like Sarah. And I was like, this was my favorite of the, I think, of the, could be because of the Steve Epting and Elizabeth Breitweiser art, but I really enjoyed this one.
Is that World War II as well?
Yes, this is about women Soviet snipers in World War II. Gotcha. Starlight was Mark Miller. Yeah, Starlight was, I remember liking Starlight.
Oh, yeah, that was Mark Miller. Yeah, I forgot about that. Never mind what I said then.
But the Lion and the Eagle was good. I'm going to pick up the rest of them.
I'm getting confused now. Who were at Planetary?
That was Warren Ellis.
Okay. Now that
Sleepy Reader's been doing a deep dive into Planetary with.
Yeah, now that he's doing that, I need to go back and start reading them again.
With Matt Wednesday Serial or whatever. I still know him from the first handle he had. Let's see, another one I got this week. This one was good too. Time Before Time. This is the sort of time traveling guy trying to get away from two time travel syndicates that run the time travel racket. And it just got even more complicated, this issue. Yeah. It's got this Mike Mignola-ish art by, who's it by? Halloran, is that? No, Joe Palmer is the artist. Declan Shalvey and Rory McConville are the writers. Joe Palmer is the artist.
I've heard of
Halloran is the colorist. But I've been enjoying this one. There was kind of a lull. I confuse Warren Ellis with Garth. It's like a near run. See, I never confuse them because I've always liked Ellis better than Ennis. So that means I don't confuse them. I think it's Agent 42Q. But yeah, this has been, there was a lull for like the first story arc I kind of liked. And then the first story arc I didn't like the ending of. And then there was a Done in One that was really good. And then the second story arc started getting really good. So I've been enjoying this one thoroughly.
Well, see, if you're a smart author and you had really bad audience feedback on something, you just have them go back in time again and change the ending.
Got to go back in time. Jared has my internet service tonight. Yeah, usually it's rocks. Like it's sometimes, like once a show when I go over to the comments, it kicks me out, and it's always when I'm over the comments. I don't know what that is, or if it's maybe it's just coincidence. I'm going over the comments a lot.
So your computer doesn't have dysentery; it has commentary.
Oh, and I showed this book a couple weeks ago that I forgot was on my shelf. Michael Cho, Shoplifter.
Well, okay.
And I was like, oh, I'm going to read that again. I finally got around to reading it again. I think I showed it like 3 weeks ago.
You know, it would be really funny if they didn't print the price on that book.
Shoplift this book. Price was $20, $24 in Canada. But by the way, I like nowadays how things say, instead of giving you a price in Canada, it says $7.99 higher in Canada. It's like we can't keep track of this. Happy 3-day weekend.
The last time I was in Canada, it was like a Canadian dollar was like $1.50 to the US dollar. So
Yeah.
it's completely opposite now. No, I don't. The name Tim Heldecker doesn't ring any bells for me at all.
But I think I enjoyed. They are higher in Canada. Woo-hoo.
Oh man, I'm so high.
Hello there, 62 Lefty Blues.
Hello.
But I think I enjoyed this more reading it this time than when I first read it in 2014. Did it come out? Let me see. Where's the indicia? I think it came out in 2014. 2014. And I think I liked it better now.
Isn't it funny how you go back and read something later on and then it could go either way. Sometimes you like it better, and other times you're like, why did I like this?
Well, and I also think sometimes, like, being that I read all my comics twice before I put them away, within the first week or two I get them, it's always a different experience the second time around, because now it becomes less about the plot and more about kind of my enjoyment reading it. And because when you read it the first time, you kind of want to know what happened and what's it all about. And I can imagine when I read this the first time, I wanted to know what it was all about. And what it's all about is kind of in terms of, it's this young woman who works. She's doing this pink, really nice artwork. That's what I liked the best about it. Michael Cho should be milking Marvel more than he is. Hey, the more work he can get, the more I'm for it. But like, this is about she's about 25 years old. I think it takes place they mention it's not New York. That's all I know. There's an elevated train. At first I thought it was New York because she works in advertising. There's an elevated train, so then I thought maybe since it's not New York, it might be Chicago, but I don't think it's Chicago either. It might be a Canadian city, because I think he's Canadian, but they never named the city. But I don't know what Canadian cities have elevated trains.
Oh gosh, I'm not sure.
Yeah, he does. He has Bruce Tim, Clean, Kirby.
Yeah, it's kind of like if you crossed Bruce Timm with Darwin Cook. And
his storytelling is very nice. And like the story itself is kind of nothing special. And like I said, it's a 25-year-old woman in the big city. She went to school for English and writing, and she's been writing ad copy for the last 5 or 6 years. So she's at a crisis point in her life.
Yeah, right.
It's a story that's been told a lot of times.
Right.
And she's at a crisis point. What is she going to do? And the shoplifter title comes from when she comes home from work, she goes to like a local bodega store, buys a bunch of stuff, and then always slips a magazine into the newspaper she's buying to steal the magazine. And that somehow gives her a thrill and makes her feel alive. So that's where the title comes from. And we go along, she's having this, you've read the story before about creative people who are working a 9-to-5 job and can't handle it anymore, so then quit and see what's next.
Right.
That's the story. And I could see why I was disappointed with the story in 2014, but reading it now, I appreciated it for the sheer construction of the story, for the sheer craft. And it's really, really well crafted. And he's got a kind of a unique, well, not a unique, he's got a drawing style that I admire, where he can pare things down to the very basics and still get a good drawing out of it.
Kind of like Alex Toth.
And he's even doing some of that with, like, look at this guy's face right here, which looks a little Dan Clowes-ish. But that's just such a nice drawing.
Yeah.
Yeah, she keeps pilfering magazines from her local mart, right?
I bet she's not stealing Savage Sword of Conan either.
Nope, she isn't. But it's just but like a lot of these pictures, like here, look like New York City pictures to me.
Yeah.
And because there's a lot of midtown building feel in here, but they specifically mention some others. They specifically mention New York City is somewhere. Like I forget which bit of. But then you get stuff like this, which more suburban. Like there's the store she's pilfering from. That wouldn't be New York City. That would be the suburbs, kind of. And this looks like Midtown. But I suppose lots of areas where you have big buildings look like Midtown these days. There's just more of Midtown. And there's the elevated train. That looks like Chicago.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what city it's supposed to play. It's an unnamed city.
Maybe it's a fictional city. Yeah,
it could be a fictional city, but it certainly made me think of it. Yeah, it could be Vancouver. Mr. Jenner, who did you say put it out? This came out in 2014. Pantheon. It's a 6x9 book. Pantheon Press. This is the first time I ever saw Michael Cho. So
I don't remember what the first time I saw him was.
I don't know if I knew about him before. This is the first thing I bought of his, but it's really nice. Yeah, the interiors are terrific. Like this, he does the story really well. He can get emotional with it. It's just a story I've read before, but reading it this second time, 8 years later, I really appreciated the craft of it. Yeah, it could be Vancouver or Toronto. But if it was Toronto, they'd show the Space Needle. If they wanted you to know it was Toronto, at least.
And
Vancouver does double for New York in a lot of TV shows. What was that?
Is it designated what time frame it takes place in?
I think 2014. Crack is probably
contemporary when it was published.
Yeah, it's contemporary. Definitely. But I got to say, I really liked it. I'm glad I discovered it in the middle of our show on my shelf a couple of weeks ago, having completely forgot about it. I don't think it was money. No, I think Vancouver's our best bet because that doubles as New York in TV shows. But Vancouver has an elevated train. Okay.
Yeah.
There we go. It must be Vancouver. Because, like I said, Michael Cho is Canadian, so it just says the big city here.
Is there anything in the text or the story that makes you think that the city is actually Canadian?
No.
Okay.
There's nothing that makes me think it's Canadian. The only reason I don't think it's New York is because they mentioned something about somebody's days back in New York.
Gotcha.
So that's how I knew it wasn't New York. Otherwise, I probably still would have been thinking it's New York. Mm-hmm. Cho was born in South Korea and lives in Canada, so you probably got it right. Okay. Like I said, if they didn't say so-and-so's days back in New York, I probably would have, thought it was.
Because that reference to another rear-world city, you wouldn't have thought.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Because there's a lot of stuff in there. The only thing that doesn't look like New York is that little 7-Eleven. That looks like the 7-Eleven behind my house more than a 7-Eleven in New York City.
Yeah.
Out in the suburbs. But definitely worth looking at. The other really interesting one I got this week, which is smaller than an average comic. It's a little bit shorter. It's about half an inch shorter than the average comic. Is the logo you can't read.
Crash Pad.
You could read that?
Yeah.
I couldn't even read.
I can
I
read
know
it.
it says
It's not
crash.
easy to read.
I know it says Crash Pad, and I can't read it. By Gary Panter. And I haven't read any of his stuff in a long, long time. And
The name doesn't ring a bell to me.
you don't know Gary Panter? He's been a Fantagraphics guy for decades now.
Yeah.
Um,
I may recognize something he worked on, but just the name's not ringing a bell to me.
this is crazy artwork. But this is really sort of what can I call it? And not even an it's an ode. It's in praise of the '60s
Okay.
and old hippies and acid trips and something.
So it would have fit right in Rip Off Press, right?
Well, it wouldn't have fit. It's more like it's trumpeting the virtues of rip-off press kind of thing.
Okay.
It's trumpeting the virtues of the '60s and the hippies and the acid trip. Literally, sometimes, because in here he starts it by saying stuff like how he starts it telling you how great some of the stuff in the '60s were, and it's kind of and we're not all sellouts. Because a lot of times the stories of the '60s in this day and age is, oh, the '60s was a great town, they had all this idealism, and then they all sold out.
Yeah.
But with this, it has a lot to do with, we didn't sell out. The '60s was a great time. The spirit of the '60s lives on. We have a lot to offer still. And it actually gives you a lot of like landmark stuff from the '60s here. And just in the very beginning where it says, clay is primal stuff. Spinning a lump of clay is very calming. The glow in the dark, useless bong produced for me by bad dimension. So it's just like all this little sort of stuff from the '60s. And in the back, they give you all this '60s literature you can read, all like the best '60s hippie acid trip literature. And then the rest of it is kind of like, I would compare it to Cursed Pirate Girl, which I got recently, in terms of
density.
It's about all the crazy art. It's about what's going. It's about being on an acid, because some of the characters in here are on an acid trip.
Gotcha.
It's about being kind of positive and celebratory, and lots of crazy stuff going on in the art. And it's not about being literal. It's about giving you a good feeling. And I really enjoyed it, I have to say. It was good stuff. Like, look at that crazy, crazy drawing.
Yeah, it's kind of like Dennis Kitchen meets Jim Woodring.
Right. And as much like Cursed Pirate Girl, I think, was about taking you on a journey through this drawing. That's
Right.
kind of what this is about. But this is in a much more '60s psychedelic way, but kind of the same thing.
I think Terrence would really like that book.
Yeah, I think Terrence picked it up, if I'm not mistaken.
Gotcha.
I saw on Twitter that he picked it up.
Oh,
wasn't Steranko stuff a little bit, though I don't know how druggy Steranko was.
It was trippy, but it wasn't acid trippy, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
It was more surrealistic, Dolly.
Yeah, my work tends to be like that. My work tends to be trippy and surrealistic, but not acid trip, because I've never done acid or any other drugs. So those are, people have often asked me over the years how much acid I've done, and I'm like, none. It's not. It's a different type of trippy. I picked up the Art of Enric, a nice art book showing lots of his cover work. He's known for Vampirella life-size poster, among other things.
Yeah, I saw the cover to that book a few days ago. It looked pretty nice.
Speaking of posters, I was just reading reviews for. Do you remember the Marvel Blacklight posters from the early '70s?
Yeah, very, very bright day glow color. Yeah.
Right, fluorescent inks.
Right.
Well, they just put out a new printing of those, where I think there's 12 of them.
Come in a book format?
Not in a book. I don't know if it's a book or a box. I'm not 100% sure on that.
I hadn't heard anything about it.
But they're out now, and I think the retail price is like $120. You can find it on Amazon for like $90.
Yeah.
But to sum up the reviews generally, they were, if you've never seen these posters before, they're really cool. If you have the posters, they're not as cool. Because the original posters, when you put them, were better. You said it looks like these new posters, though brightly colored, aren't actually printed with fluorescent ink, so they don't glow under a black light.
You don't get quite the same effect.
Right. And
probably not as big either, are they?
They're nearly as big. They said they were slightly smaller. There are poster size.
Okay.
But also they said the printing isn't as sharp. I would guess they didn't have the original. The only way the printing could not be, because they said you could tell it's been blown up.
They probably don't have the original stats anymore.
Yeah, they don't have the stats anymore. That's all. I don't know what source they used, or someone just screwed it up. They didn't have good production on it. There's always that.
Talking about production, Dark Horse did a book a few years back. The title of it was, I think it was just Pellucidar. But it was reprinting some of the Son of Tarzan and the Korak stories. Mike Colluda did a lot of them. And the idea is great because they're really good stories. But the production value on that book was terrible.
Yeah.
I've rarely been that disappointed in the physical printing of a book. It's got a really gorgeous Mark Schultz cover. Looks fantastic. You look it up and you look at the colors and it's just like.
Did they print from scans right from the old comics?
Yeah, I think so.
That can go really.
And it really shows too. They didn't. If I was a production person at Dark Horse, I wouldn't have let it go out the door with my name on it.
Yeah, they probably gave the production guy 10 minutes to.
That's possible.
I know that back in the 90s, some of the earliest essentials. They didn't have like some of the earliest essentials, like I remember doing for Essential Avengers or something.
No.
They didn't always have the stats for all. They had stats for like 80 to 90% of it, but there were some times I had to scan in the comic book and try to get it to print the best I can, and some of it just didn't look. But then as they found the stats or something, for the next printing would replace them. But there was some in there. It's just like there's nothing you can do. This is
so they just kind of Theakstonized it, right?
Yeah, nothing we can do.
No. It's kind of sad because the idea of the book was great. You know, if they just had the print quality that it should have lived up to.
It was like we got to get this out this afternoon.
That's kind of what it looked like.
Or it's not going out at all. So it's like, oh well. Right. And people complained about that stuff. I don't blame them.
I'm sure I've said this on this channel before, but Prior Tuck was talking about Steranko's stuff. Excuse me, I'm about to lose my voice. The paper that he used on the old comic scene, media scene, newspaper format magazines.
Right.
It's close to 50-year-old now, and it's still pristine white.
Wow.
So whatever paper stock he was using, he knew what the hell he was doing because it still looks good.
Oh, the poster book is 21 by 32, and there are only 12 posters. Yeah, too much room.
That's decent size.
I wasn't buying it either.
Right.
And I think I don't know if it's 12 posters or they're printed back to back. I couldn't figure that out easier. Like 12 posters on 6 sheets of paper, or 12 posters on 12 sheets of paper. I couldn't quite figure that out.
Right.
Because I was like, they're not going to print them back to back. I think Steranko is more like James Bond meets psychedelic concert posters. Yeah, that's a
sort of.
Yeah, he's not quite acid trippy.
No.
And time for another meeting of the Usagi Yojimbo fan club.
We should have a gavel.
Yeah, issue 26.
This is the
Part
week
2.
meeting.
And I have to say, that guy. Do you remember who Jay is? The demon-like character. Let me see if I can. You'll remember when I show him to you. Where is he? This guy right here.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's back in this issue. And holy cow, is he creepy. And he kept drawing him too. Every time sometimes he'd do the head turn as he talked. And that just made him creepier. But this was just
I would imagine it would be hard to pull off with that art style with anthropomorphic characters.
yeah, to make him so
Make him
creepy.
so
I was
creepy.
amazed at how creepy he made him.
Yeah, that would be hard to do.
I was just like, wow, he is really getting me creeped out here. So I was amazed at that, and it was, and I'm really liking Usagi. Giving Usagi his cousin here to talk to, whose name I've immediately forgotten. I think was just a good idea. It really kind of not that the series needed to be reinvigorated, but it reinvigorated kind of the series, given Usagi is sort of a younger sidekick to talk to, who could share his adventures for a little while. I think that was giving Usagi his Robin was a good idea here.
Damien blames you for making him read it and then getting Chaos and Comics hooked up on it.
Oh yeah, blaming me too. I
So-
jumped down. Exactly.
So we hooked another one.
I remember sleepy readers. It's in black and white. I just can't get into it. Days. Then
I
they
still
put it out
like it
in
in
color,
black
and
and
he
white
can't get
too, and I like it in color.
Me too. They put it in color. Now he can't get enough of it.
Yeah.
It is just such a good book. Usagi. That's why when people, I always see people on Twitter like asking, "Ooh, what's your favorite run of a comic?" And I'm like, all of Stan Sakai's Usagi Yojimbo. That's my favorite run.
That's hard to argue.
Yeah. Because when someone asks what your favorite run is, that presupposes Marvel and DC, corporate comics.
Usually, yeah.
No one ever gives like Eric Larson's 260 issue run. On Savage. No one considers that a run.
Ralph Snart 8 through 14.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
We need one of those squeaky gavels that kids have.
One the dogs like to chew on. Yeah.
Usagi. And that is his use of color in this was so nice too. I just looked down at the cover and that pink just caught my eye.
I noticed a lot of Cho's work. He does monochromatic.
Yeah.
Tones. He just picks one tone and then uses it.
Which I often think is a bit of a cheat, but he does it so well.
It depends on the artist, yeah.
Well, no, it's just that when you don't really know color if you're only using one color. But if you really know color, you can use one color really well.
Right.
So it's a tough call to make.
Well, it's kind of like when Darwin Cook worked with that limited color palette on the Parker books.
Right.
It works.
Right. Oh, it does. Stan Sakai would win an award for most consistent comic for the most decades. Yeah.
I will have to agree there. Yeah, absolutely.
Consistently good, too. Not just consistent. Consistently good. Well, you can make a consistently bad comic for a long time.
Right.
Like, I don't want to call it. I think I bought an issue of it a couple of years ago. Do you know there's a comic called Gold Digger?
Xanarctic Press?
Yes.
Yeah, it's Ben Dunn does that.
There's like 200 issues of it.
I didn't realize it got up to 200.
I don't know if it's somewhere near that. But I remember a few years ago, I saw it. I never bought it before. I saw an issue and bought it because I'm like, how can a comic be around for 150 issues and me have never read it? An indie comic. It was okay. Not my thing.
The Phantom, produced by Frew Publications down in Australia, it's over 2,000 issues now, I think.
Wow.
Yeah.
I've never read more than a couple of Phantoms. I don't know how easy they are to find around here, but
they're not. It's like one of those things. They're big everywhere else except the United States.
Well, yeah, like I said, I only bought one or two.
Mm-hmm.
I can't even remember. They didn't grab me at all, whatever I read of it.
Well, plus there's been multiple companies over the years that have had the Phantom Comics license.
So who knows which ones I got a hold of.
Right.
The Phantom knows.
DC's had it. Moonstone had it.
DC had it? DC
for a while. Yeah, for a while they did.
I don't remember that.
Early 90s, I think. Something like that.
Oh, wow. There's a terrific Aerosmith Art Deco cover that's coming out.
I can't really see it all that well, but what I do see looks pretty good.
Yeah. It's tiny.
Mm-hmm.
Aerosmith behind enemy lines.
Matter of fact, I think Sleepy just did a video about Aerosmith, which I haven't
with Chaos and Comics, I think. Oh, they're putting out a Philadelphia Image First dollar book. I haven't seen many dollar books lately, especially from Image. Philadelphia is one of those I passed by. Look, there's Paulo.
Hey.
I think I see a white screen.
Hello.
Hello. There he is. How are you doing this evening, Paulo?
I just got off work.
All right. He's ready to mellow out and talk some comics.
Yeah, man. I don't want to harsh your mellow, but we're gonna have some good time, like Cosmic Man.
Well, we talked about that book earlier.
Yeah, we already went through. Let's see, Crash Pad by Gary Panter.
Whoa, man!
Which is sort of a celebration of '60s acid trip psychedelia. Do you know Gary Panter?
Never heard of.
Never heard of? How come I'm the only one here who's heard of Gary Panter? Not that I've read a ton of him. He's one of the Fantagraphics guys that's been around for a while. As a matter of fact, I think he might go back to the actual undergrounds.
Yeah, okay.
I don't think he's a young man. But this one was fun. Cover painted cover by Leslie Stein. Okay. Printed in Canada. And we were just going over. I remember I showed this a few weeks ago. I forgot it was on my shelf. Michael Cho, Shoplifter. So I reread it again and really enjoyed it.
Looks nice.
I liked it better than I did in 2014. I just wasn't mature enough for its young story back then.
Yeah, that extra 8 years made all the difference there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I was too close to being her age, 25, 26 back then, and I resented her for still being so young. And now that I'm older, I don't resent her being so young anymore. I'm further away from. I'm a lifetime away from whatever her age was. And they're 25.
Have you ever done the math thing in your head where you get to a certain age and you figure out you're the same relation to one age that you are to another?
Oh, yeah, I've done that.
Like when I was 33, I realized I'm halfway between 16 and 50.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, that's interesting.
Figuring out all that.
The older you get, the higher the next number keeps getting. Like, oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Comparing yourself to other ages of yourself and other people happens all the time.
It's not good for you.
Let's see, what else did I get? The 12th issue of Deep Beyond. 12 of 12 by the Italian studio.
Mm-hmm.
Where's it? Arancia Studios by, let's see, Mirka Andolfo, David Goy, Andrea Brocardo, and Barbara Nozenzo. And I have to say, I enjoyed the ending. The ending was mostly, what was weird though, is the ending was mostly explanation.
Okay.
Because you really didn't know exactly what was going on for this whole series, because it took place in sort of a post-apocalyptic world,
Right.
where there was these people, the government and whatever was living in these domed cities, and then there was these people outside the domed cities who were terrorists, and they blew up something in the domed city, and they were rebelling against something, and that was all kind of the first issue setup. And then in the second issue, this one guy from the city was looking for some woman who was also related to the governor of the city. So he fled the city and hooked up with these rebels. And then they ended up going down to this undersea base, which was the last known location of this missing woman. So then it turned from this post-apocalyptic thing to this kind of underwater thing for an issue.
Mm-hmm.
And then then they discovered that this underwater base was a gate to another world in another dimension. And then it turned into a sci-fi book. And they went back to this other dimension. They were held captive. There was rebels in the other dimension for some reason. Once again, we didn't know what they were rebelling against, because most of them seemed peaceful. They eventually made it back to their world. Some of them were captured by the people in the city. And then this issue kind of explains everything that was really going on. And I have to say, I enjoyed the explanation. You know how sometimes when they explain what's really going on, you go, roll your eyes and go, whatever. I actually enjoyed this explanation.
Yes. Does it look like it's going to be all wrapped up in 12
It's
issues?
all wrapped up. I suppose they could have more adventures in this world if they wanted to, but it's a complete story. They could put this all in a book now, and it's a complete story with a beginning, middle, and end.
Right.
But I enjoyed it. It was good stuff. This was one I picked up on a whim, just because they had the first 2 issues lying around, or maybe it was even 3.
Right.
And I had a slow week, and I liked the artwork. I opened it up and looked at the artwork and liked it. So it was kind of unlike anything else I've been reading. I would say this is more European too, and that's got a beginning, a middle, of an end, and all these characters were just kind of on their adventure, or whatever you want to call it. So it was good stuff.
So it was more plot driven.
Yeah, it was definitely more. There was lots of character stuff going on, but it was character stuff you'd kind of expect. And the art was very well done, good storytelling, highly illustrative, like a European graphic novel, and not
sounds right up my alley, actually.
Yeah, completely different storytelling than this. This storytelling is really good, but it's also kind of artsy and minimalist. I haven't seen that much minimalist European art. Graphic designy.
Yeah, that's...
I haven't seen much graphic designy European art, but I haven't seen a ton of European art, so there might be a bunch of it that just doesn't make it over here.
There's all kinds of stuff that doesn't make it over.
Yeah,
here.
exactly. I mean, there may be tons of it over in Europe, and I just never see it. But this to me said European storytelling in the end, though.
Have you ever looked at?
There isn't that much difference between European storytelling and North American storytelling.
Have you ever looked at the Stuart Ing Books site? He's He sells art books, but he also imports a lot of French comics work over here to the States.
I don't think I've seen
If
it.
you look at the website, you'd probably see a lot of things like that.
What's the name of it?
Stuart Ing. His last name is spelled Ng.
Okay, I know that name. I didn't know he's a publisher.
He's not a publisher, but he's a bookseller, kind of like Bud Plant.
Okay. Matoti?
Lorenzo Matati.
Yeah.
Charles Best is a huge Lorenzo Matati fan.
Yeah, when I think of European comic art, I think illustrative.
Matati is a lot more abstract. And he uses a lot of colors.
Scott wants me to buy lots of
Don't feel
$100
bad,
books.
man. Yeah, I could spend thousands of dollars to that site easily if I had it to spend.
But Matati is more on the side of the French publishing style. What you have there is something that, being made for an American audience, it's easier for the Italians to do it, because the majority of the Italian artists and some of the writers are closer to American sensibilities when it comes to storytelling, because they get published in the newsstand instead of in bookstores.
Gotcha. But he's a lot more abstract than the general, what you could say Franco-Belgian artists.
Right.
That just reminded me. I haven't watched it, but the Kayfabe guys did an interview with Walter Simonson this week.
Yep.
I have it bookmarked. I haven't watched it yet either.
Me too.
I got a long list of stuff I need to get around to watching one of these days.
And I saw it started. I saw someone start a little discussion on Twitter that Rob Liefeld chimed in on, where Walter used to teach up until a few years ago down at SVA, the School of Visual Arts in Manhattan.
Okay.
He used to teach comic book class.
Right.
I think he did it for a good long while too. And he said something like, I forget what the exact quote was, like, he doesn't think he can teach the kids anymore. The new story, his storytelling is too old to teach the new kids these days. And of course, there were lots of people on Twitter going, "Nah, it's storytelling's fine." Ba 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 ba. And Rob Liefeld chimed in with something like, Walter Simonson does classic Z-style Marvel storytelling, and he does it perfectly. And that got me to thinking. I'm like, well, who is teaching any new kind of storytelling, and what is it? Because I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I don't know that there's any new storytelling besides using tons of 3D models. I don't know that there really is a new kind of storytelling. I think the Image guys had a new kind of storytelling, which I didn't really which doesn't exist anymore either, which I didn't really recognize That's the exact question I have, Sleepy. I am not sure what the new storytelling is. Because to me, a lot of the new, I don't know. The only thing new I notice and we're talking Marvel and DC here.
Oh, okay.
Not Shoplifter.
Yeah.
Not.
I'd say that it's dialogue driven.
Yeah, that could be it.
But it's severely lacking because it needs expository dialogue to explain the things that the art is not telling.
Right.
Because the art is not made to be part of the storytelling.
Yeah, I think that comes in when I less lines and more color, but that's not storytelling per se. Yeah. What I was thinking was the one, like I said, one thing I've noticed, and it's because of the digital world, is that you will often get lots, because they can set up interiors from 3D models, you get lots of deep space in perspective. So you'll see panels with just perfect perspective on them with a deep space, because that can all be modeled out simply and quickly. And you'll also see modeled out figures where all the figures fit perfectly. It's like they can do this highly illustrative space that's realistic, for lack of another word, meaning it follows all the rules of what we see in it, but there's nothing artistic to it, in that it used to be, when you didn't have those when you didn't have those when you couldn't see it. It's like, I know it was like 10 years ago, some artist at DC Comics made a model of the Daily Planet, the inside of the Daily Planet. So any artist who wanted to could open up the Google SketchUp and see any angle of the Daily Planet they wanted inside. So if you're drawing a Superman comic and you have them inside the Daily Planet, and I'm sure that this is done with lots of stuff now. Like all the Star Wars spaceships are done this way in the Star Wars comic. All the Star Wars spaceships are 3D modeled. You need a spaceship. You just pick the angle and draw it from that angle, which makes sense because you got to churn out a lot of comics and they expect it to be highly illustrative.
Right.
But in the olden days, when you didn't have access to that, you had to make it up. So you had to strip out everything. You didn't have that same kind of space. You had a more artistic space. You had to make that space kind of, unless you were, not very good. And we've seen plenty of comics of people talking in colored background boxes. The artist didn't draw anything.
Yeah.
But the artists who were good at it could make that space come alive, even though it wasn't realistic.
Like Paul Chadwick, for example. He was really good at drawing talking heads.
Yeah. Maybe the students want to do YA graphic novels for book publishers rather than the big two, who use mostly international artists. Yeah, that could be it too. I didn't even think of that. I was just thinking about, regular. Yeah, that could be. They don't want to do Marvel and DC.
Mm-hmm.
The gold rush has been in YA for a decade now.
Well, since we were talking about it earlier, talking about Jeremy Bastian's Cursed Pirate Girl. When's the last time that you saw something like that?
Oh, never. I've never seen something like that, really. I mean, like I said, I think he's got... where I've seen something like that? Robert Crumb's older brother.
Okay.
Who had graphomania or something. Do you remember those drawings he made?
No, I don't.
Oh, okay. Have you seen the movie Crumb?
No, I haven't.
Watch the movie Crumb sometime. It's a fascinating movie.
Okay.
But Robert Crumb is the sane one in the family.
I'd heard that, which kind of makes me wonder about the family.
Yeah. LOL, Crumb's poor brother. Yeah. And his older brother, who got him into drawing, he and his older brother used to make comics when they were kids, and they got him into drawing.
Yeah, I remember.
And they have Robert Crumb talking to his brother and going through some of his old comics and looking at them. Yeah, Crumb is an excellent documentary. You should really watch it. It's just really good. And then at one point, his brother became less interested in comics.
Mm-hmm.
But before he did, he started drawing these comics that Robert Crumb, he's got some kind of graphomania. And graphomania is like the compulsion to fill every part of the page with something.
Gotcha.
And Robert Crumb's older brother started drawing these people, and there was wrinkles all over everything. And just because he had this compulsion to fill every white space.
So it was like the exact opposite of Alex Toth.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that's what Cursed Pirate Girl reminds me of. There's a compulsion there.
Hyper detail.
Yeah, to fill in every... See, it's not even hyper detail, really. It's just you got to... Because if he... Well, yeah.
So he doesn't like negative space. Is that what we're saying?
Way you get... Also, this is just because he's probably never been a trained professional. Mm-hmm. If you want to get hyper detail, you draw it big and then shrink it down.
Right.
He draws at print size, so he can't actually get the same level of detail as someone like a Stephen Platt did.
It was shocking how much detail Bernie Wrightson got at a smaller size.
Oh yeah.
It's
Well, he
just
knew what he was doing.
crazy. Oh yeah.
He knew what he was doing. And illustrators used to know exactly how to do that. I don't think they do so much anymore because there's less illustration.
I'm going to bring up a name I bring up a lot, but you were talking about perspective earlier.
Mhm.
You know who was always really, really, really good at perspective?
Oh,
Was Michael Colluda.
oh yeah.
When he would draw buildings in New York City, they're like spot on.
Hmm. But it's not even that I'm talking about, though. Everybody's buildings in New York City these days are like, huh,
But back in the 70s,
Yeah.
compared to
a little
everybody
bit
else,
harder.
his work really stood out.
But it's like it has been so long since I haven't seen, like on a cover or something, a hyper detailed city. Spider-Man has got so many hyper detailed cities now that he's swinging around.
Right.
Matter of fact, I
Because
just
back
saw
in the
one.
70s, you just draw, a few squares, and those would be your windows. Yeah.
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 John Romita Jr. is still doing his same old cities. He's not into. Oh, it was this one right here. Here we go. This is the old. There's a really hyper detailed city. That's the one I saw here.
Yeah.
And this is the old. What exactly are his web lines attached to? If he's up above all the buildings, that question has been asked many
It's
times.
those same asteroids that are floating around in all
The
those
Goodyear
other
blimp.
colors. Yeah.
It's the Goodyear blimp.
Matter of fact, I think it was even in an issue of Ambush Bug. He was swinging by going,
Yeah.
what are my web lines attached to way up here? Or something like that. But yeah,
Oh, yeah.
lots of hyper detailed
We
cities.
mentioned ambush bugs, so now Damien will be like, hey.
Hyper detailed cities.
Yeah. But Damien's been enjoying going over the Aerosmith.
Oh yeah, I just watched that one too.
Mhm.
Look out, Steven Tyler.
I can't wait to get the new printing of Aerosmith. I'm gonna buy the hardcover that comes out. So I want to see what the color was supposed to look like. But I read Aerosmith when it first came out and enjoyed it, but I haven't read it since. It's one of those. I've always meant to reread Shock Rockets too, but I haven't read.
I like Shock Rockets.
Yeah.
Was it Wade von Graubadger that did the art on that?
Or was
No,
it
it was
Pacheco?
Stuart Immonen.
Stuart Immonen. There we go.
Okay, I think Graubadger inked it. Why can't I pull this stuff out of my brain 20 years later and I can't remember what I had for lunch 8 days ago?
Have you read Aerosmith, Paulo?
Yeah, when it came out, I bought the miniseries. Then I have the Portuguese collected edition.
But to me, Aerosmith is a solid B.
Yeah, well, I was very interested in seeing what the map looked like, and I think the names of the places are well chosen in some areas and not as well chosen in areas because they're using Roman names for France, for example. It's Gallia. And Lotharingia kind of works as Belgium and the Netherlands combined, as well as the Duchy of Burgundy, and that also kind of works. I'd like to see the explanation of how Lotharingia, which was the Carolingian Middle Kingdom, survived, since it was always being conquered by French and Germans.
It's funny you mentioned that because literally yesterday I saw a book about Lotharingia as being, the lost nation.
Yeah.
Wow, it's just funny how things repeat themselves sometimes.
The thing is, he decided to keep the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and he used the name Tyrolia Hungaria, which doesn't make any sense because Tyrol has always been a minor part of Austria. The capital Vienna is on the other side of the country, and if he really wanted to keep something. The name Austria is actually the Latin name for Austria, so it should still be Austria. And if he wanted to be more exotic, he should have chosen Pannonia for the Hungary part.
But Sleepy was saying in his Aerosmith video that he wanted more background on the Aerosmith world, and I want to say they already have that comic. It's called Rex Mundi.
Yeah, definitely.
If you want to read a comic that has more background and more issues
Right.
on the world, that it's sort of the alternate history world, Rex Mundi is a good one for that.
It would be interesting to me to see Eric Schanhauer do a book that was based on a fictitious European country.
Hmm. Oz isn't good enough for you?
And what would that country be?
I mean, just make one up. Just base it on, whatever historical events, but file the serial numbers off, call it something else, that kind of thing.
But after watching Sleepy's video on Aerosmith, I think the biggest problem he had with it was he wanted it to be an A-level comic. And I just don't think it is.
Busiek that wrote it?
Yeah,
yeah.
As entertaining as going through those maps is, I don't think that fleshing out the world was Busiek's top priority there. He just wanted to have a cool story where they had dragons instead of biplanes.
Right. I don't think he cares about the background that much either.
Yeah. That's why I pointed out the map. I wouldn't have chosen Tyrolia, Hungary, because it doesn't make any sense.
Right.
If you just as kind of trying to explain how there's no union of the Castilian and the Aragonese crowns, and how the hell does the southern Italy not belong to the Aragonese crown if Aragon never became part of Spain? Because I see that the 30-year war didn't exist there. I noticed this kind of things, but I'm sure that Kurt Busiek would have noticed if he had bothered studying, but I don't think it was high in his top priority. He probably just looked at a few maps and decided to. I like the name of this place. Let me try and do this.
When was that originally published?
2000.
Early 2000s.
The reason I'm asking that, there's a couple of fantasy steampunk series that are very much in that vein of like what would have happened if European history had taken these turns instead. There's actually a lot of that kind of stuff out there.
Mm-hmm.
I just wonder if he was intentionally avoiding that kind of thing.
2003.
Okay.
Well, comics should come with a letter grade. Spawn except a C level. Aerosmith a B. Usagi your money back if it isn't an A. There you go. If Spawn reaches a B, I'm happy. and it has lately because Todd McFarlane hasn't been writing it.
I think that's funny.
They bought on a sci-fi offer for working out the background.
On Aerosmith?
Yeah, on Aerosmith.
They should have asked for a historian, but well.
Yeah.
Well, there's guys that do both. Well, it's Eric Flint,
Aerosmith,
author that does a series like that.
Yeah, but like I said, I enjoy Aerosmith, but it's not A level Kurt. You know what? They're both A level talents too. I think I like Pacheco a lot in superhero stuff. Like the first place I read them together was in Avengers Forever.
Yeah, Pacheco just came on from Fantastic Four.
Right. And I remember noticing him. Matter of fact, Avengers Forever, I specifically read because I'm like, oh, he's doing something with Busiek. I might like this. And I really did. I think Avengers Forever is a terrific series.
Yeah. It was the last comic that Marvel ever did just to explain away chronology inconsistencies.
Yep.
And it works.
Yeah, I like it. I don't even really care that much about the continuity parts of that. I mean, I accept them.
Yeah. Well, Mark Grunold would have been proud.
Yeah. That was what, 98? Did that come out?
Yeah, 98, 99. The last two issues were late and they came out in 2000. But yeah. But I waited for the trade on that one. because I wanted to.
Oh, then you got screwed on the trade. Because do you still have that trade?
Yeah.
I use that trade paperback to teach my students what trapping is.
Oh.
Because what happened with that trade paperback, they fixed it since, was trapping is, and you don't really have to, they have software at the printers to take care of it these days, but you didn't then. What trapping is you've got your black line, just your black line, and then you've got your color. And you want to slide your color underneath the black line in your computer file, because otherwise what happens is sometimes the black line during printing slips and you'll get a white outline in between the color and the black line, which shouldn't be there. But what happens is on the printings of the comic itself, everything was fine. All the color was underprinted and trapped perfectly. Somehow, I don't know how it happened because I wasn't in charge of it. At Marvel, they lost all the color files. I mean, they had a whole system for archiving everything and keeping everything, but for some reason, that book, all the color files were gone. So when they went to do a trade paperback, they were, the color files are all gone. So they had to contact the colorist. And he, of course, kept the color files, but his weren't trapped. So they had to print the trade paperback with untrapped files. So now, when I have a copy of the trade paperback, when I look through mine, on like every 10th page or so, you can see where the black plate shifted, and there's white lines around everything. So look at your copy closely next time and see if that happened to it. If things went well, it wouldn't happen. But if things didn't go well, it happened. But like the latest printing of it, they fixed it in software, I assume, because it doesn't happen. I've got the hardcover version of it. Oh, matter of fact, let me see. Do I still have the soft cover version? There we go. Let me see if I can show you what I mean. Here's the soft cover version,
Right.
with the bad trapping in places. Let me see if I can find one that'll show on screen. Ooh, it happened a lot. It looks like a white outline in spots. Where's it? Oh, there we go. There's Kang the Conqueror. Let me go solo to show you what I mean. I don't know if you can tell, but Kang the Conqueror has a white outline around him. Can you see that at all?
Not really.
Yeah, it's tough to see on screen. Look at his collar. And around his fist, you can really see it on the purple.
I thought it was that was the intended effect.
Nope, that is not the intended effect. That's the black plate slipping when it's untrapped.
Maybe it's better than the intended effect.
I don't dislike the way that the color came out, especially because it actually makes sense for Kang, because he has it would be his force field. It should distort the way that you look at him.
And it doesn't happen all the time. It happens sometimes. Like, oh, look at this one. You can really see it in this guy's brown down here. And his blue.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, it's just not supposed to look like that. But by this version of it, it was fixed. And I assume it was fixed in software. Just like I said, nowadays you don't even have they tell you not even to worry about trapping because the printer has software to take care of it. It's not always true, but
That's what they tell you.
Let's see.
Yeah, Damien has a question: how do they keep the plates from slipping?
They brought in a sci-fi offer for working. Okay. How does trapping keep the plates from slipping? No. It doesn't keep the plates from slipping. It's that if the black plate slips, there's color under there. Because as you can see, it's just a little thin white piece. That's only how much the black plate slips.
So it's like a map. It's like
you
a
make
map
sure
line.
your color goes underneath the black plate. So if you have a Spider-Man head that's all red, you just make sure that the color bleeds underneath the black. So if the black slips, there's color under there, not white. Where I see bad trapping nowadays, and I just saw it on one of my comics, is in the lettering. What happens is sometimes they decide to make a caption a color. And then they put the darker lettering on top of that. But there's something you have to do called overprinting. It's just a little checkbox where if you have a yellow caption box in black lettering, you make sure that the whole box is printed yellow. Then you print the black on top of it. That way, if the black plate moves, no problem. But instead, what happens is they don't print the whole box yellow. They print the box yellow except for where the lettering is. They leave that white. And then they put the black lettering on top of it. And then the black lettering shifts. And you see a white, and the lettering looks fuzzy. Now, I'm probably the only one who notices this.
No.
You just say to yourself, oh, the lettering's a little fuzzy there, and move on. I look at it and go, God damn it, they didn't trap that.
Right. It's what you get for using too much yellow.
I think it was an issue of White Ash. I saw that happen. I was like, oh, come on, guys. This is not supposed to happen.
I had $1 million idea while you were talking about the Crumb documentary. There needs to be a documentary on Stan Sakai.
Oh, that is part. Hold on a second. That is part of the colorist workflow. It's the actual colorist who has to make sure that, but not anymore. Like they say, they don't have to do it anymore. But in the 90s, the colorist had to make sure that the color went underneath the black line. They actually do that in Photoshop. Or at least in the 90s, you did it in Photoshop. Now it's done at the printers. I do struggle with fuzzy lettering in certain comics. Yeah.
Interesting.
What was that, Scott?
Oh, I was just talking. You were talking about the Crumb documentary.
Okay.
There needs to be a documentary on Stan Sakai.
Oh, of course.
And there needs to be a documentary on Craig Russell.
Doesn't Craig Russell have his own? Hold on. What do I have?
Instructional videos.
Oh, that's what I have by him.
But it's not really a documentary format. Although sometimes he talks about the processes he uses and things like that.
There we go. My friend Ed lent me this. I still haven't watched it, probably because I don't have a DVD player anymore. P. Craig Russell's Guide to Graphic Storytelling. Elric.
I have one of those, but I don't remember which one I have. I think mine's volume 3. I believe.
Nice Elric disc. Yeah, I'm going to have to check this one out. 2016.
Come to think of it, there should be a documentary about Gilbert Shelton too.
I keep getting confused because if you look at my computer over here, that's Sleepy Reader on my screen. Probably can't make him out because of the white blowout. But I was listening to his countdown video just before we were on here. And now he's like in 2 places. I'm like, oh, 1 Sleepy Reader, 2 Sleepy Readers. Oh.
Okay, now, Damien, you're famous.
Whatever cartoon that came from. Where did that come from?
I have no idea.
It's like Dr. Smith or some cartoon or something.
Sounds a little bit like Mr. Magoo.
Could be Mr. Magoo, too. It's famous, whatever it is, but I can't think of from where. Another of the 11 comics I got this week. 11. A Righteous Thirst for Vengeance. I'll complain about this boring cover one more time.
That one doesn't bother me.
It's not that it bothers me. It's just I don't even see it. Bother is
better
Yeah,
than
I
the
can
previous
see
issues.
what would blend in with a lot of other stuff.
yeah.
I could see.
Bother is too strong a word. I just wish it had a good cover.
Yeah, but it's an improvement over the previous issues.
I don't remember any of them, so I don't know.
Yeah, actually, that one actually has something on it.
A guy with a gun shooting a gun.
He's not shooting a gun; he's shooting bullets.
But this yeah,
Well, the
That
gun's shooting bullets.
is
Is pressing
firing a gun, right?
Yeah, he's firing.
That is shooting
pressing a
bullets.
trigger.
But once again, this issue was good. The visual storytelling by Andre Lima Arujo.
You
Did I
said it
almost
better
get it?
last week.
What was that? I said it better last week.
Yes.
Ah man,
You need to practice more.
Araujo.
Yes.
I didn't hit that second A. Is what I didn't do. I
Yeah.
didn't get the Araujo. I got too confident. But his storytelling is just terrific. But this issue got darker than the other ones. I mean, there was of course always the potential for it to get dark because it's internet assassins in the dark web and this and that.
Right.
They need Walter Simonson to teach storytelling on covers. That's for sure. Because that's not it. We got another scene down there. Yawn. But there's always, of course, the potential for this to turn dark because it's about a guy trying to save people from assassins. But let's just say he does not succeed this issue. And actually, he didn't succeed the very first issue either. Now that I think of it, but it gets tough in the end of here. It's like, oh, how did that happen? But really well done. A lot of there was a couple long conversations in this, but also there's a lot of wordless storytelling in here that's just terrific. And we still don't know what motivates this guy either. But he's wanted now by the police, so and the criminals. So he doesn't have good stuff, but terrific issue. Rick Remender on the writing, but like I said, it's the artwork that's the star of that show. Araujo. Well, that's one that's going to be fun to read all at one time. Whenever the first arc or whatever ends, I'm going to pull it out, and it also reads fairly quickly too.
Oh, damn, I forgot to bring it out. Give me a minute. It's the thing about leaving work at midnight.
Yeah. You're not at your best when you get home.
So Mikasa.
I didn't get home. I just shut down one window and open another.
Oh, okay. He's working from home. I did not realize.
No.
I did not realize. And what's he bringing back? He got a new book, a Kaza book. I don't know who Kaza is.
Mikasa Tsukasa.
Mikasa book is Tsukasa book. Craig Russell reminded me I still have to do a video on my friend's that I have his Craig Russell artist edition. Thank God Paulo's name isn't hard to pronounce. Yeah. He's got an easy one.
Yeah.
Paulo. But I remember talking to him at the very beginning, figuring out if it's Paulo or Paulo or it's Paulo. Kaza was in heavy metal a lot. Oh, okay. We were talking about him on Sunday. He mentioned Kaza being one of his favorites. Said he would show it off. All right.
Yeah. There's. I think this is his only book published in Portugal.
Let's go solo with.
Yeah, Arcadis World. It's a sci-fi world where the Earth's rotation is now fixed. So the one part of the planet is always under the sun and another is always cold. And whatever people are still alive, they live in the twilight. And unfortunately, this does not sell well, so they didn't publish the second volume.
Where does he come from? Kaza?
Kaza is French.
French. Okay.
You mean he's not from Kazakhstan? So it's terrible. Oh, that looks nice.
Uh-huh.
Oh yeah, that definitely looks like heavy metal.
Man, you guys gonna make me spend money.
Hey, if you're making sleepy readers spend money, you know. Cause yeah, I've never heard of. Has he had much stuff published over here besides heavy metal? Has any of it been collected? Cool sci-fi concept.
Well, it
Has a
seems
lot
like
of his stuff been collected in Portugal?
No, not really.
So it's all in France. You got to go to France to get his stuff.
Yeah,
huh?
you have to get it in French.
it just seems like the
Nice lady posing for us.
the geostationary Earth is a lot like the Isaac Asimov story Nightfall.
Yeah, I've heard of that concept before. I've just never read or seen anything with it.
This is how you do talking heads.
Oh,
There are guys who do talking heads full time. You know, that's sort of the everyday life stuff. So I'm always like, oh, look at that glowing skeleton.
Yep.
Think all in heavy metal, Jared. There are a couple of collections. I have one with a bunch of short stories. Beautiful, cool looking stuff. Okay. Yeah. Got to collect all the heavy metal 70s and early 80s back issues. Ah. Yeah, I've never really collected heavy metal. How much do those 70s and early 80s back issues go for now?
depends on where you get them. I was really lucky and got a pristine copy of #1, and I paid $15 or $20 for it.
Ah.
Yeah.
Well, how much do you
Very
think
cheap.
would you pay between like $5 and $10 an issue? Would you think for stuff from the
Later
80s?
on, the earlier ones, no. The earlier ones,
Yeah, I don't mean the early ones. I mean the stuff from late 70s, early 80s, maybe.
well, it started in '77. So
Oh, it started in 77. I didn't
Yeah.
realize it started that late.
Yeah.
Okay.
once you get up in the '80s, that's when they start getting cheaper.
Okay.
But the ones in the first couple years, you're going to pay for them.
Mhm.
But it's also that thing we were talking about the other week, where prices on magazines like Savage Sword of Conan and Epic and sometimes Heavy Metal, they can be all over the place.
Yeah. #1 is very, very most.
Yeah, #1's like a $200 book. Now.
Yeah, #1s are always going to be like that.
Yeah. This album I just showed, the series has 9 albums published between 1989 and 2008.
Ah.
So about one every 2 years.
Uh-huh.
Oh,
But it did publish other stuff in the meantime. There's a bunch of one shots here.
Let's see. You got his #1 for 100, but that was all trade. Okay.
Yeah, I got real lucky and I don't even remember where I found it now, but it was dirt cheap.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't see. I was gonna say I don't see heavy metals much, but then I'm like, I don't look at back issues. That's probably why. All the back issues I look at are on the internet. Just because
most of the ones I see are conventions.
Yeah, I haven't been to a convention in a long time, and I never really bought. Usually conventions for me are often social events rather than to go to buy something.
Yeah.
So it's like the last few conventions I've been at, I was just socializing the whole time. I wasn't even looking to buy stuff, just seeing old friends who I haven't seen in years.
Yeah,
and hanging with them. And got a new Great Gatsby issue with, I think, the best cover so far on the series.
This looks like an Italian travel poster.
Yeah, it does look like something like that. Just nice scene, especially since I don't remember them being out in a boat. But no, it's funny. Besides reading this, I've been listening as I've been riding into the train on Wednesdays. I've been listening to the Gatsby audiobook.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't really listened to many audiobooks. A few in my day, but I'm not really an audiobook person. But it is such a different experience listening to an audiobook rather than reading it.
It can be, yeah, depending.
Especially, I forget. It's like Jake Gyllenhaal or somebody who reads the audio, like a trained actor.
Right.
So it's like he's got a completely different interpretation of the words that are in my head when I'm reading it.
I bet the cadence he uses is different than what you have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got everything figured out the way he likes it, and sounds real good. But it's like it's the difference between somebody telling you the story and hearing it in your head. It was just amazing. I mean, I'm enjoying it, but it's just amazing to me how different it is.
Gotcha.
And parts that I specifically remember being boring parts that I may not have liked.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, oh, this part is interesting now because he's interpreting it better than I did. So I find it really interesting, just the different experience.
Yeah,
especially,
it's kind of like listening to music and you expect a certain time signature and then it changes and you're like, oh, that's different.
Maybe almost like listening to a cover of your favorite song.
Okay, yeah, I could see that.
Because or maybe more like, but it's tough. But yeah, it really, like I said, and this is the only time I've listened to an audiobook of a book I've read before. I don't think I've ever, because
I've done that, but the thing with me with audiobooks is I really have to focus.
Yeah.
Because if I'm doing more than one thing at a time, and I know
you have to pay attention to them. That's why I've been doing it while I'm driving. It's easy to do that.
Yeah. And then I get mad because I have to go back and remember where I left off and start over from there.
But I must say, the artist here, Jorge Coelho, he's much better at architecture than he is at nature. I just
yes,
yeah, that makes sense.
I was just kind of giggling at. I mean, this isn't a particularly good house here, but his trees that surround the house barely look like trees to me.
The trees are more cartoony.
Yeah, the trees are extremely, and he does.
That's a weird perspective too.
Yeah, there's a weird perspective on that house. That house looks especially thin. I'm not sure.
It's almost like a flat iron castle, if that makes sense.
Yeah. But it's based on the house in Gatsby is actually based on they say is based on a real European house / castle. So I wonder if the original looked like this or not. I don't know how much research he did, but he did a great job. I really like this. There's a scene in Gatsby where he's throwing shirts in the air. And this just is kind of Winsor McKay-ish here. I kind of liked that scene of him and it's one of those scenes. I think he did a solid job with it. There are certain scenes in Gatsby that are hard to visualize. And this is one of them. Gatsby throwing shirts as Daisy giggles on the bed and then starts to cry that the shirts are so beautiful. And I think that's a really hard thing to capture. He did a pretty good job of it. It's like in some of the movies, I don't think they did that well.
That reminds me a little bit of the. There's a name for it, but I can't remember it. But it's the Mickey Mouse sequence in Fantasia. It's the Sorcerer's Apprentice.
Oh yeah,
where he's making the different things dance and float and whatnot. It kind of reminds me a little bit of that.
And he's terrific at party scenes. Because he's good at creating the architectural space for all these people to exist in. So his party's like, there's a nice dance party scene at the end that's just really good. So I must say I'm enjoying his artwork in this. The Great Gatsby. Though there was one weird choice that didn't make sense to me. Where is it? Right before the big party scene, we go from suits don't look great. No, they don't. He's not that good at fabric. I mean, he's right. The suits are completely made up. They're completely out of his head, crazy.
Like a David
whatever.
Byrne suit. Yeah.
What was that?
Is it like a David Byrne suit where it just doesn't drape properly?
They just don't look realistic. They don't look like any. Yeah, they don't look like Al Williamson suits. You know, when Al Williamson,
yeah.
They look more like fashion drawing suits. So I have to agree with Gus there. But there was one scene where there was a scene in Gatsby where a few of the rich hoity-toity people come over to Gatsby's and they invite him out to dinner, and they don't really want him to go out to dinner. So he goes, "Oh, let me get some stuff, then I'll come out to dinner with you." And they like dash out the door. They're like, "He really wants to come out to dinner with you, that loser?" And they dash out the door. So that's the end of one scene. And then I don't know the book well enough to know what the exact next scene is. But in here, the exact next scene is a party. You know, there's a big party, you know, one of the Gatsby big party scenes. Mm-hmm. But in between those two scenes, there's just, I don't know what it is. There's like this scene of a bunch of people at a bar passing out. And there was no people at a passing out bar scene. This was, the text is all about the party. And I'm like, where does this passing out in the bar scene? It's only one pass. I was just like, I don't know where that came from.
Poetic license.
Gus, what's the best comic for suits? Any of the early issues of Creepy that Al Williamson or anyone else drew. You want to see the best suits ever. Early issues of Creepy and Eerie.
Secret Agent X9, the Sunday strip, or the
yeah,
it was also Al Williamson too.
A lot of
suits did decent suits, but they were more cartoony.
Do I have any Creepy or Eerie left over there? I think I sold off my hard cut, my couple of hard. It's funny. Do you remember when Dark Horse first started printing those hard covers of Creepy and Eerie?
Yeah, I wish I'd got them all now.
I bought the first couple and then stopped because they're expensive, $50 a pop.
That's true. That is true. Yeah.
And then I said to myself, I ended up selling them years later when I needed the money, the couple I had. But I remember I had stopped buying them because I said to myself, how much money and space do I want to really dedicate to Creepy and Eerie? I'm not that big a fan of them, though the artwork in them is terrific, especially those early issues.
Yeah.
So I was like,
really good.
After like 2 months, I had 4 or 5 volumes because it's like I think the first 3 Creepies came out, the first 2. I'm like, I've already got $250 and a foot of shelf space taken up by Creepy and Eerie. I don't think I need any more.
It's kind of like the exact opposite of what they did with the Mobius library. You wish the Mobius library would come out more often, and you wish the Creepy and Eerie were spaced out more.
Right.
That makes sense, so you could afford them easier.
But it's like those are the decisions you have to make when you're buying some of these. Like I had to make that decision about the Spirit. I remember I was really I was like, oh, do I want to buy those Spirit volumes? No. 26 volumes, $50 a pop.
It's another one I wish I had now, but
I mean, If someone gave it to me, fine.
Right.
But but that's a lot of money and a lot of space. Black sod, Damien. Despite anthropomorphic animals are wearing them all perfectly dressed and in character. Black sod. Okay.
So we asked Gus what's the best comic for people wearing suits. And we asked Terrence what's the best comic for people not wearing anything at all.
I got nothing at all. I suppressed the moment is dead in the water.
There's a theory about that I don't want to discuss on the air, but I can talk to you later in private about it.
And let's see. Another comic that I was a little disappointed in this issue. The Silver Coin. This issue was written by Vida Ayala, and of course Michael Walsh draws each issue and has a different writer on each issue. And it was solidly done. The main problem I have with it is there was no reason for the silver coin in this issue. In that most of these stories have been about someone gets their hand on a silver coin and all of a sudden they become corrupt and greedy and evil and do bad things and come to a bad end. This is the story about a cop who already was corrupt, greedy, and evil. And he finds the silver coin and he's still corrupt, greedy, and evil.
Does it intensify it though?
I can't tell.
Okay.
Because we don't know him well enough to know if it intensifies.
Gotcha.
But at the end, the silver coin actually does start the fire that kills him. So that's the only reason it was there. But it was like, I thought he was supposed to be good to begin with.
Gotcha.
First Kingdom may have the most naked people, Scott.
I've never read First Kingdom. I've read a lot of interviews and articles about it, but I've never actually read the book itself.
Yeah, the thing is, it's really hard to get into because you're going to read one page and become tired. That thing is so dense.
You have to read it like a Sunday comic, one page a day. I started reading it one panel. I'm still not through it, but I read more than I've ever read of it before. Where I just pick it up for 10 minutes and read a few panels and then put it back. And I was actually following the story that way. It was amazing. Silver Coin is an anthology series. There's Michael Walsh draws all the issues, but each issue has a different writer, and each issue is self-contained horror story. And I've been enjoying it. No, Ayala just wrote this one issue. This is her Vida Ayala. All the other issues were written by different. This was the first issue that really disappointed me. It was still solid because Michael Walsh is such a good artist / storyteller. Paulo and Jared are right. Of course we are. Shoot me an email.
Bang.
But like I was a little, I still liked it, but it was just kind of a little more straightforward than the other stories. But where did Michael Walsh come from? Was he a Marvel or DC guy?
No idea.
I don't either.
Don't remember his name at all.
Yeah, I don't either. I have a vague memory because I think he came from Marvel and DC to do his own indie thing. I think he was one of those guys I remember reading. But God, I enjoyed a lot of Walsh's work. Did he do that worst X-Men ever book? I don't know. I don't know what he did. I don't. This may be the first time I've seen him. About the mutant who can explode, but only once. Isn't that everyone?
The human bomb.
Blast. No, it was Nitro. Blastar was the human bomb blast. One of the great sort of subtitles ever for a supervillain. Blastar, the living bomb blast.
I don't know. It's hard to beat Batroc the Leaper, though.
You're right, but I do like the living bomb blast.
It's down at. It's very Kirby-esque.
And who would ever think a bomb blast would be living? I think that's definitely a World War II thing. You had to be in World War II to come up with Blastar, the living
I
bomb
never
blast.
thought about that, but that makes sense.
I have never thought about it till right now, but that's not a word you hear much, bomb blast.
No. He'd have been the perfect drummer in Spinal Tap, too.
You can explode, but only once. It's funny. I liked Nitro as a villain until they made him be able to control his powers more. I haven't read a ton of Nitro, but do you remember Nitro from Captain Marvel?
Yep.
His power was he could explode. Oh, Walsh did work on that book, which is very funny. Okay. His power was he could explode, reform himself, and explode again. And, how do you fight that? Captain Marvel found out that's really hard to fight. And I think he was around for a couple of things, but I remember he was gone for a few years, and he showed up in an issue of Peter Parker, the Spectacular Spider-Man, to fight Spider-Man. But the problem is, that's an out-of-control power. And it's fine when he fought Captain Marvel in the desert. But you really can't fight in the city with that power without killing hundreds and hundreds of people.
Right.
So they had him be able to control his power, so he could hit Spider-Man with exploding fists. And I was like, that's a good workaround. But I liked him when his power was completely out of control better. But I understand why they had to change it.
Yeah, he during Acts of Vengeance, he was one of the villains in the New Mutants, and it was the first issue drawn by Rob Liefeld. And Skids from the New Mutants manages to beat him because she envelops him in one of her force fields, and he explodes inside a force field, and then he can get back together.
That's exactly how that's how you beat every villain like that. It's like you capture half of him here, and he can't reform himself. Right. That's like this. That's like standard supervillain protocol. Like, the way you beat Absorbing Man for like his first 20 years was make him touch a piece of glass or something, and then you shatter him. That was like that's how everyone beat the Absorbing Man.
Was he one of those characters that just brought out of mothballs to keep the trademark on him?
Nitro, I think so. I think there's probably some people who liked Nitro, so they wanted to use him. I think he's around more than he ever was in the 70s. Oh, Michael Walsh did Black Hammer versus Justice League Mini. Jared, what draws you to the Great Gatsby the way it does? Are you researching multiple versions for your game? Yeah, I'm just kind of trying to figure out what I want to do. Here, I'll show you what I want to do for the Gatsby. This is what I was working on today. Another Daisy drawing. Like I said, I'm trying to figure out what I want to draw because I'm never going to be able to draw it in a literal way that's kind of as good as other people. Like, what's his name here? I'm never going to be able to. I don't think I have much to offer. Like this illustration right here is probably better than something I could do in this kind of literal format. So I'm trying to figure out exactly what draws it to me and how I want to interpret that. So that's what I'm trying to figure out. But I don't know. I've just really gotten into that novel this past year for some reason. And like I said, since it became in the public domain last year, lots of other people have done their own versions of graphic novels of it. So, but I have to do more research to see what suits look like in the early 20s too. I've only found one picture so far. Rusty Skid, some of the Martian mutant code names ever. It's a great book. Okay, that's the book he mentioned up here, the worst X-Men book ever. But I'm still trying to figure out what I'm doing with my Gatsby illustrations.
Yeah.
Yeah, those were the exterminators before they joined the New Mutants. Rusty, Skids, Rusty, Skids, Rictor, Boom Boom, and Whiz Kid.
I remember Boom Boom.
You can tell that they ran out of names.
Hey, remember George Washington Bridge?
There was
yeah.
There was actually a character named George Washington Bridge.
Yeah. And guess who named him?
I
Guess
don't
who
wanna
created
guess.
him?
I already know just by you asking me that question. Oh my God.
Rob Live. It was one of the. I think it was one of the last characters among, because he created for Marvel before he went off to inform.
Did he have a brother named Brooklyn?
No idea. But we made all those jokes.
Oh
It's
yeah,
a
you
great
have
book.
to.
Yeah, Gatsby.
Yeah.
The Great Gatsby is a wonderful book. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. That's where you're starting.
But
Liefeld, right?
Rusty and Skids do predate Liefeld by a few years. They were still Rusty appears in X Factor #1, so he's a Bob Layton Jackson guys.
Uh-huh.
And Skids is already Wheezy writing.
Lieutenant V. Narrows. That's another character.
Who's that?
I don't know.
Narrows is the name of a famous bridge.
Ah, okay. The Verrazano Narrows. There we go, Lieutenant.
Are there any other books like Gatsby that you would get infatuated with?
I don't know. This is the first time it's really happened like that. I want to check out a few others, but this is the first time I've really.
There's certain books and characters that I've always been interested, like Captain Nemo from 20,000 Leagues. If anything comes up, I'll watch. And some of the more recent stuff has been horrible. But
This is kind of the first book I've wanted to do illustrations for, and the fact that it's in the public domain is making me want to do illustrations for it too. Because otherwise, why do illustrations for a book?
Right.
Like I can actually put out a digital version of this book at almost no cost to me, and sell it on Amazon or something. I want to try that. But another one I actually want to read soon is one of the books that inspired Gatsby was The Heart of Darkness
by Joseph Conrad.
By Joseph Conrad, yeah, which is also in the public domain because it's even older than Gatsby. But that's one I've been wanting to read for a little while.
Yeah, I had to read that after political science class in college.
Yeah, I've never read
not the feel good hit of the summer book, but
right. And like I'm still trying to figure my way around these illustrations too. I like my party interest. Pinterest is a good place to look for 1920s
that's
fashion.
true. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Almost kind of like a digital, more kind of a semi-image search kind of thing.
Oh,
this gives you more focused results, probably.
Here is the one.
Gus, do you have a Pinterest page? Paulo, I take it you saw Gus's wedding photos.
Yeah.
I have to show you the one where Gus made me go and look how a cufflink works. Like I said, I was trying to figure out how to do a party scene, and I found one of my old drawings from 2005, and I was like, that'll be a good party scene. So it's like this, it's very non-literal. And like, this is my Gatsby party scene. And it's got all these crazy parts to it. But if you see right down here,
it's almost
that's not how a cufflink works.
No, it's not. But your drawing almost has an Aztec quality to it.
Yeah. There's a lot of. I've looked at a lot of old stuff. This is more how a cufflink works. You see, I had to read. It's got a little, as Gus called it, a triangle, but it's not quite a triangle. It's more like I drew it more like an oval on the side because I drew it like a cuff like this, but it's actually not. It comes together like this, kind of, and
It's a bunch
and
of
it's not quite. It's
yeah.
not quite. The reference I had it for wasn't off the wrist though. It was kind of more on the wrist. So I kind of followed the reference for the cufflink. But I think now that I would like it to stick out more probably. But oh well, maybe it's not a tight cufflink.
Yeah, you can make a very Kirby-esque character, and it would be the living cufflink.
But nothing else in the picture is realistic, so it's okay.
Right.
Like I drew a miniature party scene in the sleeve. So there's a party scene in the guy's sleeve who's at the party. But like that's the stuff I'm kind of trying to figure out what I want to do. That I want to do with this. Because like I said, I don't necessarily want it to be literal, but I also don't want it to be too fantastic. Well, maybe I do want it to be too fantastic. It can't be so fantastic that it's not related to Gatsby.
I was just wondering if there's anything like that you got really deep into, because there's a few different things that I'll go down deep rabbit holes on.
It's usually my own stuff I get deep into. So
Okay.
this is kind of different for me.
Gotcha.
Yes, there's an elephant at the party. I'm glad you like it. Yes. And there's an elephant at the party. Partially, like I changed. Let me see where is.
Yeah, but nobody's talking about. Nobody in the room's talking about it, right?
No.
Nobody talks about the elephant in the room.
Those guys are all talking about the 800-pound gorilla.
By the way, I made that funny.
You did. Yes, you did.
This is I fill up one of these books a year with ink drawings. This one is from 2005 and it's book 5. So I started doing these in the year 2000. And usually like for my dreams of things, covers and stuff I go when I want to find an image to work on, I go back and I look through these. So I said I want to go back to 2005 and I was looking through these, picking out some stuff I wanted to work on for Dreams of Things cover. Mm-hmm. I wasn't even looking for Gatsby stuff. And I came across this drawing and I was like, oh, wow, that'd make a good Gatsby party scene. But, of course, it's not quite exactly, I got rid of the snarling dog. And I was like, oh, should I get rid of that elephant? And I'm like, no, I want to keep the elephant there because what makes a party like an elephant? And also because my friend Kevin Kobasic, who's also an artist, had an observation once about movies that he said the special effects in movies, like people always ask, oh, how are the special effects? People, because we were talking about SF, and I'm not really that interested in the special effects. And he said, special effects now are kind of like in the days when when there was a carnival in town, and somebody would say, "Oh, are there elephants there?" That's what. How are the special effects? Is like asking, "Were there elephants there? Are there elephants there?" So I said, "An elephant at a party. That sounds like a good time." Your art does have a touch of art. It's got a touch of a lot of my art comes through Art Deco, a bit of surrealism, a lot of art of ancient cultures like Aztec, Maya, Egyptian.
I noticed some Aztec and also some Indian.
Right, Indian, even some ancient. I really like old art from ancient civilizations.
If you like that, I'm going to get really obscure. Terrence might know about this. One of the earlier role-playing games was called Empire of the Petal Throne. And the motif for the artwork was very much like an ancient Indian. I'm trying to describe it. It's like a cross between artwork from ancient India and some other Mesoamerican culture. I
Okay.
think you would like that art style a whole lot.
Oh yeah.
It's hard to find, but if you ever saw it, I think you'd like it.
Where is it? I've got my Time, Life, Lost Civilizations books that I've had for years.
I
and years.
have a
Those
few
were-
of those. Yeah.
Ancient India, land. These have a lot of nice art in them from whatever civilization.
And you can pick those up dirt cheap at used bookstores too.
It's good stuff. I used to have a subscription to those back in when they were first coming out. One of those subscriptions you get where they send you a
remember
book every 2 months.
Yeah, they'd have TV commercials about them sometimes.
Barbara Slate. Yeah, I like Barbara Slate stuff. It's pretty good too. I enjoy her art.
That reminds me, I'm looking forward to Paul Guinan's next book. I don't remember the title of it, but it's going to be about Mesoamerican cultures.
I do not have any Sergio Topi books.
I wish I did. Oh, God.
I'm not even sure who he is. I think I've heard you guys mention him before, but I don't have
like
any.
his stuff a whole lot. What I've seen of it.
I have not. I have to write that name down on my comic shop news so I remember. Sergio Toppi.
And his art really doesn't look like anybody else's. It's very unique.
Here, matter of fact, here's a. Let me show you the other one I found in here. See, I can occasionally even get as strangely. And like these are all just like the very basic ideas.
That reminds me of Salvador Dali meets Fred Hembeck.
Yeah, with a little Picasso thrown in somehow.
Little squigglies. Yeah.
Where's the Jordan one? It's like I'm still trying to figure out what the characters look like. Daisy is the only one I've got even a little bit of a handle on in my mind. Because he doesn't Fitzgerald doesn't really describe the characters in a physical way all that much. Just kind of broad. Like I didn't even notice this, but I did something about he described Daisy as both a blonde and a brunette in the book. So it's like, huh?
It's all backlighting.
Huh, yeah, exactly. I'll make her dishwater blonde. Like this one, I'm going to somehow make into a drawing of the second female lead, whose name is Jordan, who's a golfer. I don't know why this strikes me as her, but I'm going to have to figure out how to do that. But yeah, and even in looking back in this, I drew kind of a little differently in 2005 than I do now. Some of it's the same, but not all of it. And stuff like that was just making patterns. I can work that in there. And I also figure, here's another thing I do, whoops. It's a bit anachronistic. But these are my drawings on comic books, where I draw on a torn out page of an old comic book. And I'm like, I can do a Gatsby drawing kind of in this style, if I figure out what they look like. Maybe not with his eyeballs on their foreheads. But I'm like, I can maybe with both eyes the same size. But it's like I can do, because I was like, but there weren't comic books in 1924. Then I'm like, what does that matter? I'm really going to want a print copy of your Gatsby. Like, well, I'll see if I can make a print on demand one.
It'll cost you, Damon.
But what I find interesting about the digital version too is I can always add stuff to it.
That's true.
Like if I sell it on Amazon, the digital version, I could always, when I feel like it, put some more illustrations in and just upload the new one.
And then
Now-
10 years later, you can do a George Lucas, and everybody's like, "Why did you do that for?"
Add new illustrations. But one last comic I got this week is Homesick Pilots, number 12.
So the house fighting the robot yet?
That's the house fighting the robot house. But this issue actually got scary because they're hunting for the haunted toilet seat.
Well, aren't we all?
And we got a little backstory on it now, too.
Yeah.
Because it turned the haunted toilet seat, it turns out, is in an abandoned government lab somewhere. And the reason it's in an abandoned government lab is that during World War II, they were trying to weaponize ghosts as they were doing in the current day. But things went horribly wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And they shut down the project, not only because things went terribly wrong, but because all their money was going to get used up by the Manhattan Project. So after things going wrong and this haunted toilet seat ghost like killing everybody, and then the head scientist is like, we're going to need a new staff. They were just like the military guy was like, screw it, close up this place, we're leaving. And he's like, but what about the guard we have stuck down there? And we can't save her or him, whichever it was at the time. I can't remember. So the guard has been stuck down there with the haunted toilet seat, completely mad, part ghost herself. And what the ghost does is anyone who comes down into this crazy lab gets overwhelmed by grief. That's the ghost superpower. So everybody who goes down there just dies from grief. So these guys have to go down there to try and get the haunted toilet seat, and they got this other crazy ghost with them. And the issue is just nuts and pretty. This was the first issue that was genuinely scary.
It sounds like it's getting more gonzo as it goes along.
The issue was so gonzo, but scarier than any of the other issues. That's what's so weird about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, William Kendridge did some similar work drawing on books, provisional memory. I'll have to check. I've also seen people draw on old sheets of music. I found that really interesting. I can't remember who that was, but I was like, wow.
I've seen the opposite, where I've seen people make not necessarily music notation proper, but an artful interpretation thereof.
Yeah. I've seen make actual drawings on old
other
sheets.
drawings, but I've never seen people take a drawing and make music or vice versa. That's interesting.
It was kind of interesting, but that's what eventually inspired me to draw on comic books, is seeing other people draw on strange things.
So I remember seeing an interview with Steve Ice, and he was a kid. He'd see these, printed music, and he'd see all the dots, and he thought it looked like artwork, and that's how he got interested in it. Cool.
I'll have to check him out. Yeah, I can't remember where I saw someone drawing on music. Must have been sometime on the internet, sometime in the past 25 years.
Yeah.
I maybe should have saved some of it, made a notation.
That's why I have so many damn bookmarks. It's not even funny. I go through them, I was like, I looked at this 12 years ago. Oh, that's actually pretty cool. No wonder I saved it.
I download pictures. I like digitally hoard things, but kind of organize them.
Right.
Adam
Savage does that a lot too.
People, pictures I like on Instagram by people I follow. Sometimes, sometimes I find stuff I can use for lessons. If we're paying each other, were you interested in doing a whole Gatsby graphic novel? Depends on how much it paid, I guess. I mean, I could, but I don't. The only thing is, I don't know if I could do a whole Gatsby graphic novel better than the ones that have been done. That's the only thing that gives me pause.
Would you also run into the situation where it became more of a job than a passion project?
What was that?
Would you also run into a situation where it became more of a daytime job than a passion?
Yeah, it could be that too. I mean, I would rather Craig Russell do a Great Gatsby adaptation than me, but but I'm not saying I wouldn't.
Yeah.
But like I said, there's a few being. I got the other two. There's a few being done, and I don't know. Well, I think I can do better than. I don't even know if I can, because it's a lot of work doing a Great Gatsby graphic novel.
I was thinking about when you were talking about the haunted toilet seat, just how interesting it would have been if they did in a Weird War Tales with Russ Heath drawing a horror story, but the military World War II horror story.
Russ Heath, haunted toilet seat with horses, a haunted saddle.
I could see John Severin doing that too.
There has to be a haunted saddle story.
There's probably a haunted There's probably a haunted. What's the most obscure thing I can think of? I don't know.
I also
a textile bobbin story somewhere. Yeah.
I also open whenever I do a new sketchbook. Whenever I start one, I get my little pocket dictionary out. I spin it all around, and then I open it to a random page and point to a word, and that becomes the name of my sketchbook. This one is named Interior. That's just what I landed on in the dictionary. But another thing to teach all you people out there who do drawings, scan everything in. I scan in all my sketchbooks as I go. So when I wanted to work on that and I number the pages, I could just go to, I know this is sketchbook 5, Interior. And if I wanted to work on that drawing, it's page 58, because I number it on the back, and I already have it scanned in. So I just walk over, look up on my computer, we're page 58 in that folder, and boom, I'm open and ready to go. A haunted shoe. I'm on whatever classic novels from that period in public domain. Yeah. Heart of Darkness is the next one I want to read. I know that's in public domain, but about
The
it.
problem with public domain is you've also got to worry about trademark.
Yeah. But there's already tons of Great Gatsby stuff out. That's
all right.
Like that, he was not a continuing character that anybody kept up a trademark on because they were making Great Gatsby action figures. My Dinner with Andre action figures.
My Dinner
That was
with
in
Andre
some
the
movie.
Giant.
What was that?
My Dinner with Andre the Giant.
Breakfast with Blassie.
Fred Blassie, maybe.
Yeah, I think they actually made a short film, My Breakfast with Blassie.
Oh, God. If it's Fred Blassie, that would have been an interesting story.
That's who it was.
It was?
Okay. Yeah, that's who made it. It was sort of a My Dinner with Andre spoof idea, My Breakfast with Blassie.
That's funny.
I'm gonna have to look that one up. I haven't seen that around in decades. I don't know if it must still exist. Everything still exists.
Yeah.
I wonder if you could do a comic called Ape Man, call him Tarzan on the inside, as with the Sumerian. I would guess so.
Yeah, but you can't use the word Tarzan in the marketing, though.
Right. Tarzan.
And I would dare say the Bros estate would be more of a stickler on defending their IP than even Robert E. Howard's estate is.
Yeah, it would depend. Like they would want to make it uncomfortable for you, but they wouldn't necessarily be able to do it. It depends on how deep pockets you've got.
True. But they
Disney
Yeah, I mean, they all kind of pale in comparison to Disney.
Yeah, if Disney wanted to do it, they probably could.
It's funny, the Tolkien estate. I was reading something about that the other day. It's not actually the Tolkien estate proper.
Uh-huh.
It's the Saab Zantz company, which they sold the film license rights to,
Ah, okay.
and they're the ones that really go after people.
Ah, interesting. Yeah, because that's their only job.
Well, they made a really, really bad business decision when they sold them those rights because they're in perpetuity.
Oh, so they didn't just sell them. They sold it in perpetuity. They
sold
sold
it
the
forever.
rights.
Yeah.
Okay.
They would have to do some serious finagling to ever get it back.
Yeah.
And the others are no, we're not going to let this go. This is a license to print money.
Yeah. That's why the world's toughest Reed Fleming, the world's toughest milkman, isn't getting made too, because they didn't sell him an option. They sold the rights, and they're in some vault in Sony now.
Yeah.
That's the difference between selling an option to the rights and selling the rights.
I remember Stan Sakai once at a convention was talking about, getting options is the best possible place for a creator to be, unless you can go on later to make buku dollars. Is because they give you money, but they don't mess up your property yet.
Right. Yeah. But it also costs a lot more to buy the rights.
Right.
But in the long run, when you bought the Lord of the Rings rights, you make a lot of money.
Have you seen the trailer for the new Amazon show that's going to be coming up in September?
Yeah.
It looks kind of video gamey.
Yeah. I don't even know what a video game looks like anymore.
I mean, the graphics quality, I guess, is what I'm getting at. It looks more. It reminds me more of a video game than I think that it should.
I know what you mean. I just have no reference for those type of video games anymore. My video games all look like they were made in 1987 that I play on the iPad, all the simple ones. Casual gaming.
Did you ever play Frogger?
Yeah, but I was not that big a video gamer in my youth.
Mm-hmm.
Because Frogger is the type of video game I don't like. Frogger, Pac-Man, Asteroids, all those video games. And when I say I don't like them, any video game that you play and you can't win, you just play until it's humanly impossible to play it any longer because it's moving too fast. It wasn't until you could win video games that I started really playing them with the NES and Mario Brothers. So that's when I started actually playing video games.
Gotcha.
Peter always said once the movie was made, the almost annual check for optioning went away. Yeah. That's interesting. Huh. Well, we should let Paulo get to sleep now and sign off.
I'm getting a little bit tired. This week I've been getting off work at midnight every day.
Oh wow!
Good boy,
that's late.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought I was groggy just because they shifted my shift forward an hour.
Wow.
For training. So.
Wow. I hadn't been sleeping well in the mornings, so it was yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
I fell asleep in the afternoon, and then even after I woke up, I was like too exhausted to leave the chair. I was just like, oh my goodness, I can't move. I'm so freaking tired. But I'm feeling normal.
Last night I actually fell asleep here in this chair and then woke back up at like 10:30 at night.
See, I never.
Where'd the rest of my day go? Oh yeah, just bye.
I'll nap in the mornings even or afternoons, but not in the evenings. That feeling, because then I'd never fall asleep. And I can remember doing it when I was, younger. Yeah. That feeling of like falling asleep in daylight and then waking up in the dark and you have no idea what time it is. That's too disorienting for me. I'm just like, whoa.
That doesn't really bother me.
Oh man, that freaks me out. I'm like, whoa, where am I? When am I? What time? What year is it? Am I still me? Am I a bug dreaming of me? What's going on?
What does my name tag say? Kafka?
Then I'm like, oh, it's 7:30. It's dark out at night.
Right.
I just slept. Okay. Everybody have a good night out there.
See you later.
See you
Bye,
later.
kids.
Bye.
We will catch you next week.